Good evening. We're at the Brainerd City Council, April 6th, and we're going to have the Showcasing Brainerd from 7:15 to 7:30. Essentia Health Take Heart program is here. Ms. Colette Larson and Mr. Joseph Wendt. You want to come up to the mics and showcase? Thank you, and welcome.
Thank you for having us. Mayor Wallen, City Council members, distinguished guests, on behalf of Essentia Health, St. Joseph's Medical Center, and the Brainerd Lakes Heart and Vascular Center, I'd like to express gratitude, first of all, for the opportunity to come and speak to you tonight and talk to you about our Take Heart program. As a relatively new leader with Essentia Health, I've been very impressed with the scope of the cardiovascular services that are available here in Brainerd. But I've been even more impressed with the high quality of those services, and in the short period of time that the organization here in town has achieved them. The commitment to improving the cardiovascular health of this community is very evident in the wide array of local programs ranging from prevention strategies, diagnostics, treatments using advanced techniques of angiography, including stenting of coronary and peripheral vascular diseases and those arteries. And those programs are rounded off by items and programs that are designed to decrease the mortality rate of our patients, of our community members, when a cardiac event occurs. And it's this category, this latter category of services in which that Take Heart program fits. So with me tonight, this evening, I brought along someone who can talk very specifically about the Take Heart program. This person has been kind of the force behind the Brainerd Take Heart program since its inception. So I'd like to introduce to you Ms. Colette Larson.
Thank you for having us. The Take Heart program we brought to Brainerd in 2010. It was first started by two cardiologists out of the St. Cloud and Minneapolis areas, and the whole reason for starting the program was to try and improve sudden cardiac arrest survival rates in the area. Now, when this program first started, sudden cardiac arrest survival rates were down around 6 to 7% nationwide, and that's pretty dismal. Even though every 5 years or so we keep changing how we do CPR, the survival rates didn't change. So the Take Heart program decided, let's try something a little bit different. Let's teach bystanders how to do CPR in a little bit different way. So they came up with what's called hands-only CPR with the American Heart Association, and they went out and they started training bystanders on how to do CPR using compressions only, no breathing. And what they found out was instead of 1 in 3 patients getting CPR on scene, almost all patients were getting CPR on scene. And that's because most people who know if I have to do mouth-to-mouth on somebody I don't know, chances are I'm probably not going to step in and help because I'm afraid to do that. So when they introduced the hands-only portion, they realized, well, it's not rocket science. You put your hands on the center of the chest, you push hard, you push fast, paramedics show up, patient has a better outcome. The whole thing behind sudden cardiac arrest is it's sudden. There are no signs or symptoms. It's not like a heart attack. You don't get sweaty, pale, nauseous. You don't get chest pain. You're walking and talking 1 minute, and the next second, lights are out. I actually have a sudden cardiac arrest survivor who comes with me out into the schools, and she tells her story. And she says it's like a light switch. 1 second you're there, the next second it's like the light is going off. And that's how suddenly it can happen. It's an electrical problem in the heart. So besides doing chest compressions, we also have to introduce how to use a defibrillator. So automated external defibrillators, you see these everywhere now, right? In the last 5 years, Essentia Health has donated over 80 of them throughout the Brainerd Lakes area. These are located in schools, churches, businesses, senior centers, youth centers. Anywhere you can possibly imagine seeing one of these, we're putting them. And we're putting them, but then we're putting me in there and we're training people. So in 5 years, we've trained over 14,000 people in the Brainerd Lakes area how to do the hands-only CPR, how to use the defibrillators, and people aren't afraid anymore. The other thing is the governor passed a law last year requiring that every single high school student in the state of Minnesota gets trained in CPR and AED use before they graduate from high school. It is now a state standard. With the graduating seniors of this year, We've been in the Brainerd School District for 5 years. Prior to being a nurse, I was a 9th grade health teacher. So I've come full circle. I'm back in the schools again. Brainerd's not the only district that I'm in, and we're actually fulfilling that need in the community. So now word of mouth has spread. I am called the CPR lady now. So if any organization needs it, they call me up and they say, you know, we only have like 7 or 8 people, but will you come? I come to train 8 people. I'll go to train 50 people. I was up in Pequot Lakes not too long ago, and I trained their entire high school staff. I just recently trained the entire high school staff at the Brainerd High School. So the importance of CPR is when somebody drops from sudden cardiac arrest, they have to have CPR within the first 3 to 5 minutes, along with the use of a defibrillator. If they don't, survival rates drop by 10% for every minute that they go without CPR. So this program is actually empowering the community to start doing something before the paramedics show up. Because we all know if somebody dropped right now here in the council chambers, how long would it take an ambulance to get here? We all know where the ambulance service is, but if the ambulance isn't sitting there waiting for your call, they could be on another call and they have to call in another crew. So it's going to be longer than 3 to 5 minutes to get here. People here need to be able to start doing something before the paramedics get here in order for you to have a good outcome. So the program, the Take Heart program, is reaching all community members, high school, seniors. I even train neighborhoods. So anybody that wants us to do it, we do it free of charge. We're solely a grant-based program. Everything, every dollar that comes in goes into these. It also goes into these. These are my mannequins. These are portable now. They're little half torsos. I bring them into the schools. I train the students. Then their homework assignment is they take it home to their parents, their family members. There's a DVD inside. It trains them on hands-only CPR. Then they bring them back to me. So besides just training the students at the schools, which is mandated now, we're also training their family members. And I've had notes written from parents saying, this was awesome. I haven't had CPR in 20 years. And it's changed a lot. So the program that we're offering through Essentia Health, again, like I said, it's based on grants. We do it all free of charge. Any organization that wants it will come do it. If you want me to come to a city council meeting some night and train you guys, literally 15 minutes, I can teach you how to do CPR and use one of these. Okay? So any questions on our program?
How much are one of those?
Defibrillators? This one averages around $1,500.
Okay.
And we've donated over 80.
Wow.
And then these little kits, these run about $40 a piece. And every few years I have to order more to replace ones that pop because they are inflatable. But these are nice as opposed to the nice big blue suitcases we used to have to carry around.
So no more Recessa Annie? Or?
Well, you know, the school district still has Recessa Annie. She's up on the shelf. We use these now.
Life expectancy on that equipment?
On this equipment, 10 years, 15 years, 20 years. It depends on your upkeep. It depends if you take care of it. And I'm responsible for all 80 that are out there right now. I send out emails, I make phone calls, I pop in and make surprise visits to make sure that the batteries are up to date, make sure the pads aren't expired. So.
Wow. Very impressive.
We've learned over the years that many people with sudden cardiac death will not survive unless they have an AED. And so the importance of having these available to at all city locations and places where community and the public gather is extremely important. So Essentia Health sees that as something that we can do to give back, and so we support her salary, and from the funding for these is typically what people who have benefited in the past, they just line up to give us money for this, and all of that money goes back to putting these back out into the community.
Contact, how do, if someone out there is looking to find you guys, just
Call the hospital, call Essentia Health, and just ask for Colette Larson. And they'll direct you right to my email or to my voicemail.
You said it was an electrical problem in the heart. Can a cardiologist detect that? So it's just happened.
It's sudden. That's the problem. You can go in for a physical today, and this could happen to you tomorrow. So they could do an EKG, look at the electrical activity of the heart. It could be absolutely normal today. And then tomorrow, all of a sudden, your lights out. That's how quickly it happens. And it happens anywhere from, teenage years on up to, 80s, 90s. It's not common for teenagers, but it's becoming more common, it seems like.
There are conditions like QT syndrome, things that a cardiologist might be able to pick up or detect if you went to see them. But as Colette said, it's sudden. It's typically people who are completely healthy and have no reason to go see a cardiologist. So it's something that happens to individuals without warning.
My fear would be the risk I take using that machine on somebody else.
That's why I go out, because I take the fear away. Every place I've gone, people are afraid they're going to get sued if they use it.
Yes.
There has not been a single successful lawsuit for using one of these. Actually, it's been the reverse. If you choose not to use it and you have one available, you are more likely to get sued. Because this is a public access device. Anybody can use it. So if you're in the Brainerd High School and there's one of these on the wall and you're just visiting that day and somebody collapses and you know how to use it, go get it off the wall. Because it's for anybody to use. You don't have to work there. You don't have to, be from that area even to be able to use it. And the Good Samaritan law protects you.
And the ones I've seen, they actually tell you what to do.
Oh, they all do.
It'll say,
And if you try to push the shock button at the wrong time because you're a little nervous and you decide to hit the shock button when you really shouldn't be, it doesn't do anything. Mm-hmm. It tells you no shock delivered.
Okay.
So you cannot shock some. It's not like a taser. I always, whenever I go out and talk to law
those in the high
enforcement,
school would just be bad.
it's not like a taser. You cannot make it shock somebody who doesn't need it.
So
You
has
can't.
staff been trained in the use of this?
We recently had a training. I was certified over at Aiken, but I wanted to make sure everyone can use it on me, so that's why I had staff go through the training.
It would be good for the council to have the training.
And the
can
thing,
set that up.
the thing with the Take Heart program is, it's not a 4-hour certification class. You don't get a card from American Heart, but by the time you're done with the training, usually I tell people a lot for a half hour because stories come up and questions come up. But in that half hour, I can make you feel as comfortable as if you were to take a 4-hour class. And you'll know how to use one of these, you won't be afraid to use it, and you'll know how to do hands-only CPR. And that's all you really need to know before the paramedics get there.
And that can be used in all weather, rain, snow, sleet, and everything.
Yeah.
That does not affect you.
Nope.
Okay, thanks.
I think it's wonderful that you are doing this. I really do.
It's my passion. It is.
You can see
shows-
it, but I think it's nice that St. Joe's is, donating and providing this type of equipment for this community and schools and that. So.
She's the force behind it, though, I have to admit it. I mean, she is a former flight nurse. Well, she actually is still a flight
still
nurse
am.
and very good at what she does. So we're blessed to have her.
Mr. Chair, I think if you adjourned the meeting right now, it would have been worthwhile. Because I think this has been outstanding.
I will tell you one last thing. This is Heart Safe Community. It's a designation that I am actually applying for the city of Brainerd right now. And all it is, Minnesota Department of Health and the American Heart Association recognizes different cities, regions, for their commitment in training the public, in donating AEDs. So hopefully within the next couple of months, we will get this designation for Brainerd. It doesn't mean a monetary anything. It's just that they're recognizing us as, we're trying to do good things in this community for the people who live here for sudden cardiac arrest. So this will be something probably on your agenda within the next couple of months to give you the award for it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it tremendously. Well, with that, I probably can start out with Chelsea. She's new tonight. Chelsea Perkins, Brainerd Dispatch.
Welcome.
Welcome. And appreciate you. And basically, a little bit about you. You do the county meetings, right?
Yeah, I cover the county board inside Brainerd, and until we hire a couple of new reporters over at the dispatch, I'll be covering both.
Okay. Thank you. And we got a couple seconds.
Stand up. Yes, I do. Now we're ready to go.
Good evening. We're in the Brainerd City Council chamber here. It's April 6th. It's 7:30. We'll start out with roll call.
Mayor Wallin?
Here.
Bevins? Johnson?
Here.
Orkenhagen?
Here.
Hilgard?
Here.
Coe?
Here.
Pritchett?
Here.
Sheeler?
Here. Have the pledge of allegiance. Item number 4 would be the approval of the agenda.
A couple suggested changes, sir.
Yes.
I'd like to take items 6B6 and 9A, they both relate to Business 371, and move those to 6A. We already have 6, which is accepting the grant or the awards, and then this would be 6A. And then also, sir, if we could move Fire Chief Kevin Stunek to item 7A. We have currently the Camp Ripley update is 7, and then 7A would be Kevin Stunek. He's got an update on a couple of items for the council.
Looking for a motion?
Move to approve with changes.
We have
Second.
We have a motion, we have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. We'll move to item number 5. This is the consent calendar. Notice to the public, all matters listed are considered routine by the council and will be enacted by one motion. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless good cause is shown prior to the time the council votes on the motion.
Move to approve.
Second.
We have a motion, we have a second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same side. Oh, roll call. I'm sorry. Thank you, Mayor. You're right on tonight.
I was reading it.
Okay.
Johnson.
Yes.
Borkenhagen.
Yes.
Hildegard.
Yes.
Cope.
Yes.
Pritchett.
Yes.
Sheila.
Yes.
Got caught up with you.
We'll move to item number 6, Essentia Health Take Heart Program. This is to accept the donation of the 3 AED units for the following departments: the Parks Department, the Police Department, and the Fire Department. And we have all 3. The Fire Chief is here, the Police Chief is here, and the Park Director is here. So come on up, take it away. You gonna take some pictures, Mayor?
I didn't bring a camera,
Okay.
but we can,
Yep.
I wish I had all 3 devices. I have one you can look at. You cannot take it. This one is mine. But I was very impressed. No, you can't have it, Kevin. I was very impressed with the fact that I ran into somebody at Girls' Night Out at Essentia Health, and it was someone from the city, and she started asking me questions about how we could apply for something like this. And within a week, I had an application from the fire department, the police department, and the parks department. It was very easy to say yes to all 3 of you, because especially you 2 are first responders on scenes all the time. A lot of times you beat the ambulance there. So by you guys having these in your squads, it improves the survival rate of a lot of patients. So I'm very happy to be able to donate these to you. We will have your devices within hopefully the next week, and I will be calling you up, and we will make an appointment to drop these off. So congratulations, and thank you for your interest.
Thank you.
I suppose.
I move to approve.
Second?
We have a motion, we have a second. We have some discussion here. Patrick, you had a quick question. Hang on.
That was Dave that made the motion?
Yes.
Okay. Sue seconded, okay. I would just like to acknowledge that that employee was our HR coordinator, Chris Schumer.
Oh, wow. Well,
Good
great.
job.
It was her extra efforts that brought that information, so.
So she gets the unit then, right?
Yeah.
There is one at City Hall downstairs.
The battery's low.
Well, I want to thank, from the bottom of our heart for what you're doing here. And
Bottom of your heart. That's a good one there, Gary.
Yeah.
No pun intended. We have a motion, we have a second. Any more discussion? All in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. That motion carries. We're going to move to 6A. This would be the Business 371. There's 2 items on here. If you look on your thing here, there's 9A. It's Business 371 Corridor. Council decision delayed for additional MnDOT comment. And then it's also on Mary Cope's. So go ahead, take it away, Mary.
Okay, Mr. Chair, I move that there be a workshop relative to the Business 371 area commonly known as South 6th Street at 5 p.m. on Thursday. That is April 9th, and it would be in the Chamber's headquarters. However, it will be a council meeting, and it will be, the council will be the people who will handle the meeting. So the purpose of the workshop is to have MnDOT come one more time with their maps, lay everything out, listen to what kinds of massaging or changes or other options there may be to incorporate in their plans.
I'll second.
Sorry. Excuse me.
So the motion is approved. Now go ahead, Mary. Keep.
Okay, well, that's the purpose of the workshop, and then I think the vote should probably be held at the next council meeting.
The 20th of April?
Right, because we don't want to hold the project up. But I think this will clear the air on what options there may be. MnDOT has laws they must abide by, statutory obligations. Those they cannot change those in any way. Nonetheless, there are some options that I understand they may be willing to at least look at. So that's the purpose.
Marion, I want to thank you for that, and then I was just going to add, at the reason we took the CTC room at the chamber, they've got the state-of-the-art, which you should all see, which I was just there last week, technology that they want to show off, and they can put this stuff right on, they can take, 371, put it on the screen, and you can just walk right through it. So with great technology, that would be nice to see. So, we have a motion, we have a second. Any more discussion? All in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. That motion carries. We'll move to item number 7, and I'll let the mayor make the introduction to Camp Ripley.
Thank you, Mr. President. We are honored again to have the Camp Ripley annual update, and we have with us the evening crew, St. Sauver, and Warrant Officer Bernard. And if you would be so kind, Colonel, and I was just down there, and it's fantastic what's going on, so I'll let you take it away.
Well, Mr. Chairman and Mayor and members of the council, thank you for having me back. Every year, I like to come up and give you a quick update of what your noisy neighbors to the south are going to be up to, and we're going to be busy this year. Okay, so first slide up, Dan. Our mission never changes, and I'll just mention, we really call it our triple bottom line. It's federal, state, and community. That is what our mission is at Camp Ripley. Federally, we still have units deployed. We're getting ready to get our aviation unit back from overseas right now, and we're preparing 2 units to leave. So while the war cycle seems to be going down, our operational tempo still stays very, very high. Along with that, we're getting, this summer you'll see us very busy, probably a third higher than we've been in the last couple of years, because we have a number of units going into full deployment cycles to further availability, and one unit that's actually going to go out to the National Training Center next year in Fort Irwin, which is a very large element of ours, which includes the units here in Brainerd. So those units will be heading out next summer. So they'll be very, very busy. And I'll talk a little bit about each one of those as we go. Next slide. Our economic impact, everybody's always worried about, what they want to know what's going on at camp. Well, we're very strong at Camp Ripley, even in sequestration, even with the budget reductions that we've went through, which are challenging. We're still having some pretty good standard years, and this year will exceed that in many areas. There's a couple numbers I look at very closely each year to see how we're doing locally. That local contract number is very important. I like that number about 3 million. Now this last year was about just shy of 2 million, and we're going to increase that exponentially locally, because you're going to see a number of local contracts this year dealing with those large exercises that we're going to be running. You probably already heard and or seen the articles in the paper, probably looking for some workers for the summer, as again we have these large civilian contractors that are going to run readiness exercises for us, and they're going to be hiring a lot of our local citizens to do a lot of that role-playing work for us. Down at camp all summer long. So that number should increase a lot. Everybody loves that food number. Our soldiers do eat a lot. Every day they seem to not miss that line. That's one line you'll never see them miss. So, and with the addition of a lot of our facilities, those numbers will stay pretty solid. One of the numbers that should be reducing in the next couple of years will be the overall project number. We have been building like crazy, and if you've been down to camp over the last 10 years, you've noticed that we've been building, and we still are. We're still in that cycle of construction. That is going to be ramping down now. We're going to go into more sustainment and repair at Camp Ripley, and if successful, in this year's legislature, we hope to do a lot more working outstate in our armories. Our armories are very aged, and we're starting to build a program. The FMO, my partner down at Camp Ripley in the state of Minnesota, we're looking at all of the ages of our armories across the state and where we should be located. So the state will be talking more about that. Next slide. Here's a quick look at what we're going to be doing in the months over the summertime. We're already ramping up. Actually, next week we'll start ramping up, and I know that you probably noticed a couple of pretty good smoke clouds over the last few weeks. I'll talk about fire later, but we are having some difficulty, obviously, because we have a lot of ground we need to burn yet. And I'd love to tell you that we've already done the northern impact area, but we have not. All the fire we've done so far has been in the southern part, so we can get to our live fire exercises. And we will be burning up here in the north, hopefully in the next week to 10 days, based on the weather, to get this large impact area in the north burnt out. But we have a lot of units coming in that are obvious noisemakers and fire that increase our fire hazard, and that is the Engineer Battalion out of Wilmer. They do a lot of heavy demo explosions, so a lot of those heavy earth impacts that you hear or that you'll hear at nights. Again, it's not a thunderstorm, it's us. Watch the weather. So those tend to really, and they're done in the north, so that has an effect on Brainerd in the area around here as we do those. And then those artillery battalions, of course, they sit all over camp, and then they shoot up into the north and from the north to the south. So I know we always wake up Pillager when we're on the northwest boundary and we're shooting into the south. So that'll start already in May this year, much earlier than we normally do. Now, as well as that, you look at that civilian number. It just so happens that when we really ramp up about the middle of May, I'll have 3,000 Boy Scouts as well as the 3,000 to 4,000, 5,000 soldiers mixing together, and we'll have the multi-year rendezvous at Camp Ripley. So we're looking forward to that event as well and doing that. Next slide. In June, really, this will be a very busy month as well. The one of the 194th, which is your home unit here out of Brainerd, and its associated companies will all be at Camp Ripley doing their exportable combat training center, along with a number of aviation units, and then our combined arms battalion from out in western Minnesota will be here as well. Out of the state of Nebraska, we'll have a couple of aviation battalions coming in. Now, we're going to have a lot of helicopters in and around the area all summer. A lot of air operations going on, both Chinook and Black Hawk. So you will see a lot of helicopters in the entire boundary of Camp Ripley, virtually the entire summer, because those helicopters will be rotating in and out. This group in June will mostly be from the Nebraska Guard coming up, along with our own helicopters, which are working all the time. Next slide. In July, we'll bring in our combat aviation brigades. So now we switch away from Nebraska, and we'll bring in our helicopters that are currently out of St. Paul and St. Cloud. They'll be up at Camp Ripley for that entire time. We're bringing in another armor battalion out of Ohio that will be in doing their tank and gunnery tables. Most of that work is in the south. However, it's quite noisy as well, and depending on the environment. Remember, when you get heavy humidity, that's when the sound is louder. So every time you have heavy humidities, just prior to thunderstorms, anytime that weather is really moist, that's when we really do reverberate that sound, and you'll hear a lot more from us down south. Now, also in July, the 196th Maneuver Enhancement Brigade out of South Dakota will be doing a readiness exercise. They're bridgers. Now, their headquarters will be here, but they'll be bridging the Mississippi River. So they'll be working both on camp and around, and they're going to be here really for July and August. And so there will be times when we'll actually close the river for short amounts of time and open it, and we coordinate that with the Corps and everybody that's using the river up and down for sporting and everything else. But it's quite an event when they span that entire river. And if the conditions stay like they are now, it should be fairly easy, obviously, because our water is pretty low right now, depending on how much water that comes down. So looking forward to that. And then, of course, the Battlefield Surveillance Brigade out in Nebraska will still be conducting their readiness exercise. So a lot of busyness going on at Camp Ripley. In August, the 151 Field Artillery will be coming from western Minnesota, along with, again, the Ohio unit has two elements coming at different times. Now, they normally fly in, so they could be bringing heavy military traffic in as well. But we're going to try to keep our C-130 traffic, once we start the summer, down to a minimum. You'll notice that they're flying almost all year round, and they're in a constant rotation cycle. But during the times that we're doing the heavy ground maneuver training, we're going to try to keep the aircraft to a minimum as far as our fixed-wing aircraft, because we have to control that airspace as well when we have all those flying around. So we'll be predominantly working on our ground units for most of the summer. And again, you see that 164th Engineer Battalion, that's a carry-on unit from South Dakota that will be coming over to finish up their bridging operations. Then in September, we actually kick into our fall cycle, which we're gonna be a little residual into September as we clean up what we're doing on the Army side. But this is really where we start our civilian training again in the fall. And when you look at in there, you see the Morrison County Water Festival. That's really 600 sixth graders that come down to Camp Ripley, and they learn all about the water, why it's important, the river, and what it has to do with us, and how we protect our natural resources, especially our water, which isn't infinite. And they learn all about that. That's a pretty special event for us. Our State Patrol's annual certification, the DNR, all of the DNR enforcement officers come through Camp Ripley, as well as the State Patrol officers who are there now training. They will rotate through their in-service training at Camp Ripley. And actually, the State Patrol Academy is currently going on at Camp Ripley. I'd like to highlight the Camp Ripley Biennial Open House. Put that on your calendar. We'd love to see you. It's on 20 September. And this year we're going to, our theme is really going to be a thank you to our interagency partners. It's going to be to all of our firefighters and our law enforcement officials and all the folks, that the DNR and all those agencies from the state and local agencies that do such great work for us on a daily basis. We'd like to thank them for all the stuff they do for us, because gosh knows for the last 12, 13 years everybody's been thanking the military for everything they do every day, and rightly so, and the same should be held true for all of our local heroes that are out there every day, just like I heard with the AEDs right now. I mean, every building occupied on Camp Ripley has AEDs, every one, right? And we train our folks how to use them. You know why? Because exactly what she said. Okay? Never need to be afraid of an AED. Okay, we carry them in our vehicles, and we do that for a reason, right? Everybody's life is important, and that's the folks, those first responders are the folks that get there. And they're the folks that we need to thank. So we hope to do that. Next slide. In October, my favorite time of year, I'm a typical Minnesotan, right? So our DNR hunts start in the fall, and I like the October time frame anyway. Our disabled veterans hunts are all there. We bring in the Minnesota Fire Marshals. They're actually on Camp Ripley right now doing some work down there in their executive council. And again, our Court of Honor, that's where we is in on 4 October. And that's where we thank all of those people that have served their lives for the Minnesota National Guard and all those years of dedicated service. And we thank them for that, and we memorialize them at Camp Ripley at the museum. So we'll do that on the 4th of October. I'll guarantee you, because it always happens, it'll be raining, and it won't be that nice outside, but it always is a great event anyway. So going into our fall. Next slide. Some of our facilities. Now this one kind of fits right into what you were talking about earlier. Our Medical Simulation Training Center was just completed. We're actually going to open this right now. Now the difference with our facility than a lot of others, this facility is built specifically for trauma. It's built to train all of our medics and those first responders and those state agencies that need that trauma training to do that at Camp Ripley. This thing has the mannequins we use, you can't put in a box. Okay? They're fully interoperable, and they truly act as a body, in trauma. And that's meant to put them in, to immerse them as the best we can to get them ready for that critical injury that we suffer in the work we do. And that can be suffered. So this facility is one of only 7 or 8 that was built in the National Guard, and we were very, very fortunate to get one for our medics for the Minnesota National Guard, for all of our state agencies that require that training. So we're really looking forward to getting this one underway and rolling, and it actually is done now, and we're just starting to put all of the pieces and parts together. All the contractors, there's actually 8 contractors that work here full time. All they do is run the systems that monitor all of the way these mannequins react to everything. So they are very interactive, and it's pretty intense. Next slide. Our education center. A lot of you were down and saw our education center. I'm glad to announce, since we did the ribbon cutting on the education center, the DFAC, the dining facility, is now open. We are using the dining facility every day, which is the first goal we got through, and we started today with our first class for our Regional Training Institute. So our Regional Training Institute is in, and I plan on opening full-time the entire facility on the 1st of May. We're basically, I'm not going to lie, I'm guinea pigging them just a little bit to try all the stuff in these new buildings, make sure everything works right, and make sure the contractors have time to go in and do the fixes they need to get the building up and running But that project has been well receptive, and it's at a perfect time for us, obviously, with the season we're going to have. And we're looking forward to getting that thing fully rolling. Next slide. I can't do anything without my partners. Everybody knows how important my state agency partners are in the state of Minnesota's influence on Camp Ripley. The Minnesota DNR, I mentioned already, the Conservation Officer headquarters is on Camp Ripley. I have a very close relationship with their department on a daily basis in and around Camp Ripley. The State Patrol as well, housed at Camp Ripley with full-time employees, and of course their driving track is in full use right now as they're going through their in-service training with all their officers both day and night. So they're very busy. HSCM, the Homeland Security Emergency Management, they just recently, just last month, did their first full-up exercise with, I think it was, I don't want to get this wrong, it was a county in western Minnesota, so I'm not going to guess. But it was a county in western Minnesota, and they brought their entire emergency service corps and their fire and their law enforcement, and they went through a complete emergency operation exercise that was very well received, and we learned a lot from that as well. Now, the military will use that facility when HSCM is not. They have a full-time employees there, because we're doing a number of command post exercises as well right now that test a lot of the same things, a little different way, a little different method, but the facility itself it lends greatly to all those exercises. So we'll be using that. MnDOT, obviously everybody knows MnDOT in the fall when they're at camp. You know, when they do the snowplow driving, that's probably the biggest event. I'm actually going to meet with them soon on expanding some services they have, some of the types of training they're looking to. They're starting to do a lot of their regional meetings for their supervisors at Camp Ripley, which our central location just leads to that. Next slide. This is probably the one that gets the most information, or people are really interested in right now. And I will tell you, what you see on the slide is exactly what I know, because this is not my forte. Okay, environmental programs is really my partner Larry Herkey over at the Construction Facilities Management Office, but he is doing some amazing things right now with environmental and greening up Camp Ripley and our energy efficiency. Everybody, I think, has probably heard we're putting in a solar voltaic field, 10 megawatts, which we'll actually are starting on here very shortly. We are working on a biomass thermal heating district on Camp Ripley itself, as well as a reciprocating engine to produce 8 more megawatts of power. What I do know from my chair is that it's supposed to create energy independency for me if I need it, and to lessen the stress on the grid. Now, if anybody asks me a question what I just said, I'm not sure. Okay, I'm really not sure, because I'm not an electrician, except I'm supposed to be saving energy, which they tell me I'm doing. Okay, and we need that independency when we have interruptions in power, because we are such a major power user. So these things are very well done. We actually have 2 large geothermal fields going in right now. One is actually operating at the new education center. That entire building is geothermal. And my headquarters, 11-1, the main armory on the base, is also having a geothermal field put in currently. So we'll have 2 very, very large horizontal geothermal fields. Again, ask me what that means. The heat comes on, and so does the cooling. That's what I know. Okay. So, but it is very exciting, and Larry's doing a wonderful job with his team over there, and we're going to showcase a lot of those over the next couple of years. Next slide. Our environmental partnerships have not changed. I can't do anything without the Minnesota Department of Natural Resources, Bowser, in the state colleges and universities. I mean, I do so much up here with Central Lakes College and all the colleges around Minnesota, with all of the interns we get, all of the studies that are going on. The Nature Conservancy, again, I tell people all the time, the Audubon Society. When I first came to Camp Ripley 15 years ago, you couldn't use the Audubon Society and the U.S. Army in the same sentence. They just weren't compatible. But they are now. And they are because they got together and figured out where their similarities are and what they're actually doing. And it's actually pretty neat to both of my facility at Arden Hills down in the northern metro and up here, that the amount of Audubon activities, bird watching that goes on, ornithology that's going on across the base, and all the studies that are ongoing. So it's pretty good stuff, and it really does empower our soldiers to train. And that's what this is about, empowering our soldiers to train. Next slide. Everybody's interested in surveys. I got a couple to tell you about. Everybody always asks me what will stop a tank. A Blanding's turtle. That will stop a tank dead in its tracks. Okay, we don't run them over, and we try to make sure we take care of those little critters. couple that I can tell you about quickly, I'm sure one of them you've heard about, and that's the northern long-eared bat. The northern long-eared bat has just been identified as a species. Somebody help me. It's not a endangered species. It's threatened species. And so we're going to get some rules from the federal government and everybody that has forests up in our area that has the long-eared bat, which we do as well. There's going to be some additional rules put on us on how we maintain that and help that group of animals. Now, my bats, interestingly enough, you'll see a little white patch on their backs. They have backpacks, little backpacks with antennas. I kid you not. Little micro backpacks, and they're following the little bats around, and so we can track these bats, they tell me, and find out how they're doing and what they're doing. So that's our piece of that, and I think it's just, again, our environmental classroom is world-renowned, and that's what it's for. We've learned so much about how we affect our environment, both positively and negatively, by these studies that you can't talk enough about them. My other favorite one is that golden eagle in the middle. His name is Ripley. That golden eagle has wintered now 2 years on Camp Ripley, and it's the first time that a golden eagle has stayed overwintered this far north. So we got a hold of the Raptor Center, and they came up and they backpacked this dude too. So this girl, actually Ripley, is a female, and we're tracking her now along with 3 other eagles. And so if you're interested in where she goes for the summer, she's currently in Great Slave Lake in northern Manitoba already. She left just shortly after she was backpacked. I don't know if she was mad, but she took off and she's way up north. But we expect her back, and now that's kind of science that's being carried on. Most of those golden eagles, those other 2, are from way down by Rochester, and then they're tracking them all the way to the north. So this could be a pretty exciting program. And for those of you that remember a number of years back when we were studying the timber wolves, we learned a lot in central Minnesota about timber wolves from that little group of Camp Ripley wolves. And we still are to this day, obviously. Next slide. Community outreach. Again, I won't. You guys know what's going on down there. You're welcome to come down. Our hunts, our open houses, our environmental field days. If you want to come down to the group, give us a call. We're always willing to show you what's going on. That's Dan's forte, and you guys all know Dan Bednark, and he's a local resident up here, and he's more than happy through the Joint Visitors Bureau to get you down and look at camp or show you what we're doing if you ever have a question about what we're doing. Next slide. Our prescribed burns, I already talked about them. Again, I have about 13,000 acres I need to get done. I'm about 3/4 done. Okay, so we were very lucky in that we were dry enough early enough that our firing was actually starting the fires, and even though it was fairly windy, we were able to backburn those fires and get those taken care of. So the last big fire I have, I'll let the city of Brainerd know. We always let the dispatch know when we're going to burn the northern impact area. As soon as the conditions are right now, we'll get that one burned up, and we should be good for the summer. So then my biggest fear is somebody burning onto Camp Ripley, which happened last year to me for the first time. But I have a great fire department down there. I have great fire support both here in the north, and I know for a fact that any time we have a problem in the north side, that you guys are a phone call away as well as everybody else, because we're thinking about that. People ask me if there's what keeps a commander up at night. A wildfire will keep me up at night. It'll keep my boss up at night as well. It's just we're so big. And we all know the risk of fire in our area. And it looks like we may have a drought year this year. So we'll be watching that very closely. Next slide. 16 April, we'll have our public meeting on ACUB. We're doing very good in the Army Compatible Use Buffer Program. We have a yearly meeting. We just received about just shy of $900,000 from the federal government. Now imagine that, a year where there is no money, and we just received $900,000. That is how successful this program is. And we receive that money directly from Big Army. So this program is so well established and so well thought of, the way that we're doing that. And there's currently a bill going through the state legislature called Sentinel Landscapes. If that Sentinel Landscapes bill passes the state legislature, we'll be the first state in the United States to have a state-recognized Sentinel Landscape. And what does that mean to us? It means that now the federal government would like to open what I call OPM, other people's money. Okay, so the Department of Agriculture, the Bureau of Land Management, all those areas that are doing programs to protect conservation easements or to protect what's going on in the environment can be linked together and brought in with the Department of Defense in areas where it makes the most sense. For me, the Gull River area would be a very good place, right? The northern buffer of Camp Ripley and along the eastern boundary and western boundary of Camp Ripley, because as I've told you many times, our biggest restriction is noise. We make noise, and as long as there's encroachment, then noise becomes more and more of an issue for those residents that aren't used to that and aren't used to what Camp Ripley affects. So we're doing very well there. Other than that, we're going to be fairly calm all summer long. What are your questions?
I have a couple, if I may, Mr. Chair.
Go ahead.
First of all, who does your surveys for the environment?
Well, it depends on what kind of surveys,
Well,
ma'am.
you had that one slide that said surveys, and then you showed the golden eagle.
Oh, sure,
and
sure.
the turtle
Most of those,
and the
most of those
bat.
are done. We have two DNR employees on our staff. They're both wildlife managers, and then they will work with the colleges and university students. And right now, I know I have some kids from Central Lake College as well as some kids from St. Cloud State that are working some of our programs. I also have a group from St. Cloud State working on invasive species currently on weed management. So it just depends. Like our bear researchers for many years came from Michigan State. We try to get the best minds in the industry out there, but these young kids that are in their classroom work, this field work is invaluable to them, especially in the outdoor environment of Camp Ripley.
And my second question, if I may, Mr. Chair, is are the police and fire departments in the surrounding cities notified when you're going to have those helicopters flying over in profusion?
The way I've been doing, we don't notify them directly, no. We certainly could. What we notify is through these meetings right here. We give the time periods that they're going to be available, and then because we fly literally every day. So if you're between, especially the corridor from St. Cloud to Camp Ripley, that corridor, the Chinook helicopters that we have, they fly literally 2 to 3 nights a week because that's where they train is at night. So we have helicopter and fixed-wing traffic almost consistently 3 to 4 days a week on camp year-round.
I just think it would be a good idea to perhaps email the police or
Sure.
fire or county dispatcher, because sometimes if you hear a helicopter and it's going really low, we're all nervous these days about potential threats. And I just think it would be good, so if someone called the dispatcher, the sheriff's department, and said, what's going on with all of these low-flying helicopters, they'd say, Camp Ripley is having an
So probably what I'll do, ma'am, is I'll give the time periods that the large groups are going to be there.
Thank you.
Okay? You bet. My pleasure. Anything else?
Mayor wants to wrap it up.
As always, Colonel, we appreciate the updates because we are televised, and we also have the Brainerd Dispatch here, and so by your presence here and presentations and that, it allows our citizens to have a better idea of what's happening, and we do, for anybody that doesn't like the noise, just be thankful that we are making noise and having our troops protected and in good training. So with that, we appreciate all of that Camp Ripley does, and appreciate you and Warren for being here and the presentation.
Well, thank you for your support. I really do mean that. It's the community, the communities of Brainerd and the area, Brainerd Lakes area, it couldn't be more supportive. And I truly do mean that if there's citizens that are concerned, give us a call. Never think you can't give us a call or stop by. Remember, you can always stop by. We're not a closed post. Come in, ask a question. We'll be more than happy to show you around. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We are. You bet. You can look us right up anytime. Yeah, in fact, I can give you the number. Okay? It's 320-616-2699. And my able assistant will pick up the phone almost every time or leave her a message, and I'll guarantee if you're yelling at me, it'll get to me. Thank you.
Thank you
Thank
so
you, sir.
much. Appreciate it tremendously. With that, we'll be moving on to 7A. This will be the report with Patrick and the fire chief, and I'll let you take over, Patrick, on this one.
Get Kevin situated, and he's got a couple of reports. We've got the shared services grant, and then he wants to update on the fire that happened a couple weeks ago and what's transpiring there.
Go ahead there, chief.
Mr. Chip, you want to pass that one?
Sure, you bet. Well, good evening, everybody.
Do you need to know who I am? I'm Kevin Stunick, the fire chief for the city of Brainerd.
And your address?
Where the big red trucks are, Gary. How's that? Does that work? Okay. Thank you very much. I'm here on a couple issues tonight. I want to talk about the Front Street fire just briefly. As you probably noticed, the building is gone, so that's kind of a nice eyesore to have gone. The preliminary report back from the investigators is undetermined as far as the cause, and I say preliminary because they're probably going to be doing some more things. The couple of weeks after the fire, there was quite a gathering of folks on a Monday and a Tuesday. There was probably 30-some folks, investigators, attorneys, League of Minnesota Cities, electrical engineers, plumbers, you name it, they were all there. We were there pretty much about 10 hours on Monday. We pretty much shoveled everything out of that second floor and looking and looking. You might ask, how come it's an undetermined cause of the fire? Mostly because there's so much damage that was done on the second floor and in the attic areas. So it's real hard to do any kind of mapping or arcing of wiring or anything like that. So after all the gurus were there and all the experts were there, I think it was all decided that at this point it's undetermined. All the information's not back yet, but I think at this point it's going to be undetermined. I think a big thank you goes out to everybody that was involved in that, and our prayers and everything are with the person that died in that fire. So that's one thing. As you're probably aware, the fire department in the surrounding area, and I say this honestly, the Cuyuna Range Fire Departments, which involves 13 fire departments, and I would say Nisswa is the host department on this. We started doing a shared services grant last fall, and that's in heavy progress right now. I just talked to one of the other fire chiefs today. We had a meeting, and that grant, we should have a preliminary report back by the end of April, and I think that's going to be a very positive thing for not only the Brainerd Fire Department as we move forward, but all the surrounding departments that we deal with. So any questions on those two things? Okay, last but not least, be careful now, Patrick. I handed out a letter, and I'm going to retire.
Really sorry to hear that.
The time is right. I want to spend time with my family and everybody. I just want to thank the fire guys, and as my letter said, everybody I've been involved in for 40 years. Especially Lane. She's been my right-hand man. And especially my wife. She's a saint. So, thank all of you for everything.
We want to thank you, and then tremendously for all the
Shep wasn't supposed to be here.
for all the dedication, all the hard work you've done for this community. That was, unforgettable.
Gabe, did you give a letter to the dispatch? I had an extra one there.
I gave one.
Okay,
thank
good.
you so much. For
My letter pretty much explains kind of the time frame. If it seems aggressive, I apologize for that, but in working with Chris Schubert, HR, and with Patrick, we just felt the time is right to do it this way.
So your last day will be April 17th?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
What I would be looking for here is a motion with regret, to send this letter.
Second.
We have a motion, we have a second. Any more discussion on?
Not
Go
on
ahead.
not on the motion, not on the
Okay.
motion. I
Okay.
want to make a comment. So,
All in favor of the motion? Aye. Opposed, same sign. That motion carries, and I'll let the mayor go ahead.
Well, one of the things, and I've known Mr. Stunick for about 100 years, I think. And one of the things that...
Where's that AED? I'm not quite that old. Some people say I've
I'm
chased...
getting closer than you are.
Yeah,
I'll
that's
say
true.
that.
That's true.
But one of the things that's interesting is that you mentioned your dad, being involved in the fire department.
Yeah.
And I see him every Sunday,
Yeah.
and he's over 100.
Yeah.
And
Really?
No. My father's 91.
91. Well,
Okay.
he's getting...
And I'm hoping he's in bed because I haven't told him yet because I figured
I
I'd
was wondering
have to
about
tactfully
the
figure that out.
and I shouldn't have mentioned almost 100, but no,
Yeah.
he just had his 90th, I think. What?
91st birthday, actually about a week and a half ago.
Yeah. So
And actually, it's interesting because my grandfather was a fireman in St. Cloud for many years, too.
How many years now? Can you tell everybody, how many years have you been with this?
I joined the fire department in May of 1974, but like my letter says, back then you had to be 21 years of age to be on a fire department. So when I was 18 and graduated from high school, the current fire chief back then, Ray Shortridge, who actually hired my father and hired myself, put me on a college sleeper program. And what that meant is I could come to fires, I could clean up, I could pull hose, I could ride the truck, but I couldn't actually be in the nozzle. So those 3 years from when I was 18 and a half till when I was 21 actually don't count toward my years of service. Then, of course, when I turned 21, what happened? They changed the rules to 18. So I've been chasing red fire trucks for a long time. A lot of my staff, who I thank tremendously, will say I've been here since horses. Well, I'm not that old. But it's been a huge career and a wonderful career.
I want to thank you so much for.
You're going to be missed.
Yeah.
Thank you,
Yeah.
Chief,
Thank
for
you, Kevin.
Thank you.
A couple items if we could take care of that while Kevin's still here.
I still want you to sign up for some of those committee report when we get to
There
that.
you go.
I want to be the council chair. Does that work?
Yes. And now we're going to let Patrick take over with a few household duties here.
Okay, with Kevin's, I handed out a memo, gave a copy to the newspaper also, it just identified, since we became aware of it on Thursday late, Chris and I have been working with, to address this with Kevin, so we've got some highlights here for the council. If I can just walk through this, if you let me walk through it
Yes,
all,
please.
that will explain, and I think your answer, wait a second, your questions will be answered. So the first thing we need to do under April 6th is accept his resignation, and you guys did that, thank you. The second part is to request the Civil Service Commission to meet, to begin the hiring process. Third item, authorize the expenditure of funds for the hiring process. We'll come back to that. Approve modified fire chief job description, see Exhibit B. So the first exhibit you have is the resignation letter, and then you have Exhibit B1, 2, 3. And that is the job description when modified. We'll come back to that action. I'm circling the action items. 5, clarify that the fire department administrative specialist will report directly to the city administrator during the transitional period and hiring process, and that is a recommendation from the fire chief. He's gone through this process and recommends that process work, and we also will ask that. Authorize staff to begin, number 6, authorize staff to begin drafting an interim fire chief contract until a fire chief is hired. Estimated time commitment, 3 to 4 hours per day to oversee incident command and supervise full-time and paid on-call firefighters. Note the city administrators watching or supervising the administrative staff. The interim chief will watch the firefighters. We are suggesting an hourly rate there. I'm not identifying it publicly because hopefully we can negotiate that. So,
Okay.
Chad, will see if you could avoid not putting that number in there. That would help us. And we're sharing with council to discuss. I was going to come back to all the action items. I just want to walk through them first so that we don't have more questions. Chief Sunick's recommending we do a fire chief, and we'll talk about that as we go through. And so 6A is the outside individual. We are specifically recommending is Cross Lake Fire Chief Chip Lowmiller. He's a state-recognized excellent fire chief, comes from outside the organization. If you don't want to go that route, we would definitely go further, but we think that is staff's recommendation.
Washington Redskin place kicker?
Yeah.
Super Bowl champion, yes.
Okay.
That was my first read.
I'm sorry for the interruption.
We all have that first reaction. I'm sorry, males, we all
I don't
do.
think so.
Thank you for bringing us back to reality.
That's
sir.
right.
Item number 7, we wanted to clarify. So 2015 budget, the base monthly salary, 100%, is already set at $7,164.02 per month. This is step A of the salary administration plan. In correlation, the new chief would be hired theoretically at the 85%, or $6,074.18 per month. With that said, let me just talk about what the civil service requirements are. They have to review the recommendation for the interim fire chief. 2, they determine if staff or consultants should coordinate the search and hiring process. 3, set application due dates. 4, determine where to advertise. Switching to page 2, determine interview panel members. In addition to the Civil Service Commission members, it's very common to invite a professional from a surrounding community, fire chief, to be involved in that so that you can ask more detailed questions. 3, set scoring percentages and weights, application materials, essay, interview scoring. set tentative date for commission meetings to certify the top 3 candidates for council consideration. Timelines, we're looking at May 1st for the initial deadline for applications. May 4th through the 11th, the HR coordinator review the applications and see who meets the minimums in that process there. On May 15th, the Civil Service Commission could meet with and determine which applicants to be interviewed. Late May, early June, interview the top candidates, and that would be by the Civil Service Commission. By June 11th, we would be looking for the commission to certify top 3 applicants from hiring process for the council consideration. At the June 15th meeting, that is your second meeting of the month, council would review and formalize a hiring recommendation, conditional job offer. June 22nd, notify candidate of successfully completing pre-employment testing. Looking at June 6th to be the first day, July, as the first day of employment. Included with your packet, after you look at the exhibits of the job description, I included from our webpage the current members of the Civil Service Commission. That would be the third to last page. It is Ray Charpentier, Dale Parks, and Bill Matthews. The last page, or the second to last page, Exhibit C3 is identified as the Police, Civil, and Service Commission. That's right out of our webpage also, so everybody knows exactly what we're talking about. And finally, the last page is Exhibit C4, is State of Minnesota Statutes, Powers and Duties of the Civil Service, and it discusses that unique word, absolute control and supervision over employment. So we wanted to make sure council and the public understands the civil service's role in this process. Now, I would be willing to answer questions or go into the action items that we talked about earlier.
Probably go right into the action items.
All right. Authorize expenditures.
Which item are you on?
I'm sorry, I'm on item number 3 under April 6th. Well, first, I guess we need to have request the Civil Service Commission meet to begin the hiring process.
So, second.
We have a motion, we have a second. Any discussion on that? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. That motion carries.
Next item is item number 3, authorize the expenditure of funds for the hiring process. Chris, could you hit what those might be?
Usually it's the publication costs for putting in a job ad. Online publication also is another cost that we usually use the dispatch for. I didn't see any kind of cost on the Minnesota Fire Chiefs Association website, but I would verify that too. Usually those costs for publication for a job ad is usually around $500 to $600.
And for the TV audience, you are?
Oh, sorry. I am Chris Schubert. I'm the HR coordinator for the city of Brainerd.
Thank you.
The other savings is by keeping it internal, we don't have to expend the $2,000 to $4,000 that we spent last time. Yep.
For hiring a consultant.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
where do we advertise?
That's that would be part of what they determine where to advertise under the very last item of the page, Mary, and that will be determined by the Civil Service Commission.
So we'll be looking for a motion.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion, we have a second. Now discussion on item number 3 here.
So we just put in a ceilingless amount?
No. Prudent.
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you, Gabe.
I was asking if we were putting a ceiling on how much you would spend to hire a fire chief or not.
I don't think it would be over $1,000 if it's done in-house.
Okay. Rough idea.
But we ask that you not set the dollar amount. We'll keep you advised if it goes over that amount. Is that fair?
Okay.
We have a motion, we have a, whoops, go ahead. Oh, okay, we have a motion, we have a second. Any more discussion? All in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. The motion carries.
Next item I have for council is item number 4, authorize a modified fire chief job description as shown in Exhibit B. Chris, would you like to highlight any modifications that you made?
Certainly. I put this job description to our normal format. I utilize job descriptions from another community and then also looking at our police chief. So it's kind of a hybrid type of thing. That's what we normally do to try to do this. I also included under education and experience what is currently required in the fire civil service rules for our fire chief position.
Very well done.
And that's under education and experience as Exhibit B2.
We're looking for a motion.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion, do we have a second? Any discussion on that? All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
The next
Opposed,
item?
same sign.
Oh, sorry.
Motion carries, sorry.
I counted 6 yeses, that's fine.
Yes.
Clarify that the fire department administrative specialist will report directly to the city administrator during the transitional period and hiring process.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion, we have a second. Any discussion?
That's
Who
Elaine.
is that person?
That's Elaine.
Okay.
Forgive me, I can't think of her last
Kramer.
name.
Kramer.
Thank you.
Elaine Kramer. Okay. We have a motion, we have a second. All in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. That motion carries. Item number 6.
The next item is to authorize staff to negotiate for an interim fire chief that we've suggested as Chip Lohmiller at the dollar amount approximately that we've identified in the memo. We're looking for this individual to work 3 to 4 hours per week on site.
Yep, 3 to 4 hours per day,
Thank
not
you.
per week.
That's 2 mistakes today already.
Since you started counting.
Sounds like a wife.
So I would ask that you authorize that if you're so agreeing to that.
So moved.
We have a motion, we have a second. And the reason you,
Was it Chip that seconded that?
Yeah.
Thank you.
the reason for, what is the fire, Cross Lakes Fire Chief, the reason for this?
We're recommending interim chief Chip Lohmiller due to the fact with his experience, his knowledge, his alternate business. He is the fire chief over there, but we've talked with him tentatively. He understands the requirements of what we're looking for. He knows our organization. He's worked with all of the firefighters, done the training for them. He even has a side business where he does training for other fire departments and has used Kevin and some of the other firefighters, and so there's a good working knowledge. There won't be a lot of, how do I say, ramping up for somebody from the Twin Cities or something. He knows our organization and our facilities. He's close by. We see this as a win-win for everybody.
Does he have the right to also apply for this position? I mean, as a, while he's doing this, can he come in and also apply?
Technically, that would be a decision of the Civil Service Commission.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chair, what
Yep.
will we be paying him?
What we're suggesting is the amount in there that I was trying to avoid saying publicly.
Because he wants to
You're more than welcome
negotiate.
to if you wish to, but
Well,
then
we'll
it
hold
makes it
that.
hard to negotiate.
Yes.
Okay.
Do we have a motion
We do.
and a second? Any further discussion? All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. That motion carries.
Thank you. I think the city council's action work is done here. We
Any more
appreciate-
discussion from the council on this?
questions?
Any more questions to Patrick or Chris?
I did tell Kevin that he could leave. It's his last meeting after you guys were done raking through the coals, so we appreciate Kevin.
Kevin, if you can hang around for the hugs, it'd be great.
I wouldn't want that on TV, Gary.
Was that a motion, Gary? Do you need to?
Yeah. Thank you so much again. And we know it was very tough, and we appreciate everything you've done. With that, we're going to move on. See you, Kevin.
Best of luck to you too, Chief.
We'll see you, Chief.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Kevin.
I'm not going anywhere. I'll be around.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you so much. Item number 8 will be council committee reports, and we'll move to item 8A, and Sue Hilgard's going to take over on that.
All right, thank
First of
you.
all, I want to say I was very impressed with that, when you handled it in Safety and Public Works.
Well,
Yeah,
it was
me
just
too.
2 of us. It was really hard to avoid, much arguing, so, but we made it through. The first item to present, Mr. President, is item number 1, Willow Street Signal System Resolution. And the summary of the issue, Council President Sheeler requested that an item be placed on our Safety and Public Works Committee agenda to consider the adoption of a resolution in support of MnDOT installing a signal system at the intersection of Business 371 and Willow Street. Staff have adopted a resolution, a draft resolution that's been attached in your packet, and the resolution is requesting the installation based on signal warrant number 8 and makes the case for Willow Street being a significant component of the city's roadway network. And with that, I move the Willow Street Signal System Resolution.
Second.
We have a motion, we have a second discussion.
Yes. And I don't know if this should take the form of possibly an amendment, but I think there's something else that we should consider doing, and that's drafting a letter to our state representatives and our state senator in support of, and if they could possibly contact MnDOT and talk about their personal, their experience with Brainerd and the community and the value that this would, bring.
If you would like to do that as
A separate motion, I will be glad to do that as a separate motion.
I agree,
Yeah.
that's a good idea.
And I want everybody to know that what we're doing here is, a safety concern, and I've been reading a lot of emails and stuff about slowing down traffic and safety. This is one of the first steps that we're going as a council. And a lot of it is enforcement issues that were put into those emails. It's not, other issues, but we're trying our enforcement and also whatever we can, So I appreciate this motion. So with this will be roll call.
Johnson?
Yes.
Borkenhagen?
Yes.
Hilgert?
Yes.
Coe?
Yes.
Pritchett?
Yes.
Sheeler?
Yes. That motion carries. And then the second one, if you
So
want
I would like to
it-
make a motion that we draft a letter to our state representatives and state senators asking for them to support Brainerd in getting the go-ahead to put some sort of traffic signal or traffic control at the intersection of Willow Street.
Second.
And with that, would you copy the state to know that we're doing this?
Yes.
Okay. So we have a motion, we have a second. All in favor of the motion?
Aye.
All same sign, that motion carries. Thank you, Dave, for that. Go ahead, Sue.
All right, our next item was improvement 1306, the 28th Street construction, to set a public hearing for 7:30 PM Monday, April 20th, 2015. And in regard to that improvement, the city of Brainerd was not successful with the application for local regional improvement project funding to expand the scope of the 28th Street project. As a result, staff is recommending that we proceed to public hearing to consider the improvement as originally proposed. Staff is reviewing the original cost estimate and preliminary assessment role in preparation for a public hearing to consider the improvement. And with that summary, I move the improvement 1306.
We have a motion. We have a motion, we have a second. Any discussion? I just have one question. When it says on the bottom, $370 cost, what do you mean by that, Jeff, when you threw that on the bottom of the page?
$370,000.
Probably $370,000.
Or $370,000, I'm sorry.
I think that's our estimated construction cost.
We could get it for $370.
Yeah, I know.
Take it.
But that was for what it would cost if
Yeah.
we put that intersection in, is what you're saying?
No, that's just the base project.
Oh,
Of the
okay,
street.
okay.
Yep.
And then,
Includes shipping.
Jeff, you didn't check if it was budgeted or not?
Well, it's part of our program, so we've had discussion about it in Safety and Public Works Committee, and we did have council direction to move forward with that project in this year's budget. So I guess I would say yes, it's budgeted.
my next question, then, if I could ask you, would be, when's the bids going out?
We would want to have bids. We've got plans ready to go. So once we conduct a public hearing on the 20th, we would be requesting council action to approve the plans and specifications and authorize advertisement for bids. Bids would be returnable by, roughly about 3.5, 4 weeks after that. So we would be letting a contract or awarding a contract either our last meeting in May or first meeting in June.
Thank you. Any further discussion? We have a motion, we have a second. All in favor of the motion?
Aye.
All same sign, that motion carries. Item number 3, Sue?
Yes, that is the Crow Wing Soil and Water Conservation District contract, and this is follow-up to the January 29th council meeting where council approved accepting a grant from Soil and Water to construct 2 stormwater runoff management facilities, one in Lum Park and the other in conjunction with the tennis court construction in Gregory Park. The grant provides 75% funding to a maximum of $5,685.60. There's a 25% local match, which is proposed to be mostly provided through in-kind services from the street and engineering departments. And the explanation of the cost was that it would be about $5,000 with tax and shipping, and it's included as in-kind labor. With that explanation, I would move the adoption of this Crow Wing Soil, Water, and Conservation District contract.
I would second that. Just a quick thought too that this will be a good educational opportunity for the community to learn about stormwater on public property.
And then we have a motion, we have a second, and then we're in discussion. Any further discussion,
I
Mary?
have a question,
Go ahead.
Mr. Chair. I'm very supportive of the project, but my question is that under the total cost proposed is $5,000, which is almost 50% of the total grant amount, as versus 25%. And I just wondered if we could have a short word of explanation.
The total cost is $5,000, including in-kind. I read that wrong. Is that the,
But according to the
question.
grant, we'd only be paying, should only be paying 25%, but 5,000 is almost 50%.
Yeah. If I can, yes. I put in the 5,000 on that form before Jesse and I sat down and talked about it in a little bit more detail. There's a revised cost estimate for it. So, no, we're still looking, it shouldn't be 5,000. It should be more in that area of about 2,500.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Good catch, Mary.
It's money.
Any further discussion? We have a motion, we have a second. All in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. That motion carries. Go ahead, Sue.
Next item is an event street closure application for,
Sue, for a second. What I'll require is maybe just go with a motion, and then you can do it
Sure.
go with the discussion. I'm sorry.
I will. We have
Thank
an application for an event street closure for Shep's Annual Elbow Convention. And the motion is to approve that application with a noise caveat that the amplified music would be maintained at a level that is not intrusive to residents beyond a 2-block radius. And that was a recommendation of the police chief.
We have a motion, we have a second. Go ahead, Sue, with the explanation.
I made the explanation, really. I snuck it in.
Okay, there you go. Is anybody going to speak on behalf of it, or?
Is there any?
Good thing.
Shep is here if there's any questions of Shep. In committee, we talked, today the chief and I talked a little bit about previous noise issues, and Shep was here to discuss that. Apparently last year there were certain problems with their sound person, and those problems have been resolved, so they're not anticipating having those types of problems again this year.
Great. We have a motion, we have a second. Any further discussion? All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. That motion carries. Go ahead, Sue.
Next, we have an
You're
event.
approved, your request has been approved then.
Next, we have
Thank
an
you.
event street closure application for a zombie crawl, and this is an event that will be held downtown on Saturday, May 2nd, presented by Brainerd Community Action, and I would move that event application.
Second?
We have a motion, we have a second. Go ahead, Sue.
Just to discuss, the event is scheduled between 11 and 5 on Saturday, May 2nd. The street closure for the parade is scheduled from 3:15 to 4:30 that afternoon. The application has been distributed to all departments, and the only suggested conditions received were from the police department related to parking and traffic control. And we did discuss that in committee, and he seemed that he had, was well aware of what he needed to do, and that it would be a well-managed event.
We have a motion, we have a second. Any further discussion? He did also mention about the restrooms. He was going to make sure that they're, properly placed so that everybody sees them. So, with that, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. That motion carries. Go ahead, Sue.
Okay. Number 6, we have a list of items from the Transit Department, a number of them actually starting with a radio tower lease. And this is a request to enter into a contract to purchase lease space for the radio system for the transit system. And I will just make a motion that we enter into that agreement with Kentel.
Second.
We have a motion, we have a second. Go ahead and explain. Sue.
Okay, so the county's Oak Ridge Tower was sold at the end of 2014. Transit 2A antennas and equipment is still being used on that tower. the new owner is requiring a monthly rent for using his tower. The following contract, which is attached to our paperwork, was approved by the Joint Transportation Advisory Committee in the Office of MnDOT. Because of the arrangement that the transit has with MnDOT, they pay 85% of the cost, so the actual total cost of the contract to the city would be $315 per year.
Thank you, Sue. We have a motion. Second. We have a second. Any further discussion on that? All in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Hold same sign. That motion carries.
Did twice. Service change request, and this is based on a study that was done by the county in relation to the Cross Lake services. And so the motion is to approve the change in service from the Cross Lake route to the Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday offerings outlined on their chart, providing services 210 East Motley to Pillager, 371 North Pequot Lakes and Breezy Point to Brainerd, and then Highway 210 West Crosby and Deerwood to Brainerd. I so move.
Second. We have a motion. We have a second. Any further discussion? Mary?
Mr. Chair, when we had our joint meeting a couple weeks ago or so, that wasn't brought up at all. Wasn't an item on that agenda. Perhaps had not been thought through yet. And I see the county has approved it. And it's obviously going to be using what are currently designated as the county's uses of the bus. Mm-hmm. My question would be if Cass County is going to be charged. Right now, it's a Crow Wing County Brainerd bus service. The city of Brainerd holds the contract. Technically, we have to approve any change because it's our contract. The county levies a certain amount of money because their current ridership does not provide enough revenue to meet their match. The exact opposite is true with the city. We do not have to levy to meet our match because our ridership provides the revenue for that. So with that lengthy explanation, if they go outside of the county and there is no charge to Cass County, is Crow Wing County simply going to eat it?
Ken, Mr. Chairman, I was not able to attend the last meeting with the just the county tax, so I'm not sure how that discussion went exactly. But that would be the case. It's the county system, so either the county is making arrangements with Cass County or Crow Wing County will pick up the difference. We will, whatever that cost is, if the county wants to have that as part of their operation, we will invoice the county for those unmet expenses.
Okay, I just wanted that clarification, and I thank you. Thank you.
Do you have any more to add, Sue? Or?
No, just what staff has recommended that the council accept at this meeting.
We have a motion. We have a second. Any further discussion? All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Hold same side. Motion carries.
Okay, the next item for transit is item C, operating policy amendments. And there are a number of items, 1 through 6, that we would like to pass individually, I believe, because there might be some different discussion on the different items. So I would just move the first, adding Pine River to our policy title, since Pine River adopted the Brainerd and Crow Wing public transit policy.
Second.
We have a motion. We have a second. Any further discussion? All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Hold same sign. Motion carries.
All right, the second one is regarding fares, and that would be moving fares from inside the policy language to an addendum, and that way when fares are revised, they don't have to, the whole policy doesn't have to be re-adopted. And so I would move that moving fares from inside the policy language to an addendum.
We have a motion. Second. and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign.
Number
Motion
3,
carries.
removing free children from the policy language so that there's a fair paid for every rider. And this one was probably the one that might require some discussion. The current policy has been children 5 years of age and under ride free when accompanied by an adult, limit of 2 paid per adult. The motion is to remove that free children from the policy language and adopt an everyone pays a fair policy. You have to second it.
Second.
Before we can. All right, so now there's discussion.
Yes, we have a motion, we have a second. Go ahead.
You know, I had some concerns on this because, you know, in reading the memo, I'm not sure what the problem, if the problem is that the children are paying or the problem is that the bus is hitting capacity. I mean, wouldn't it be simple, if it's the and it sounds more like it's the capacity, wouldn't a simpler fix be make sure that people say how many kids they have?
But they do.
I mean, that would be a simple, you know, do you have any children accompanying you? How many?
Oh, but with a route match, a reservation might be made over an automated system.
Okay, and
where
so
that
that
question
doesn't
would
that
be
doesn't
asked.
work that way because you know you're kind of looking at this. You know, if you're taking 2 kids with you every day, 5 days a week, you know that's an $80 a month difference. That's
And the
substantial.
discussion that,
Go ahead, Chip.
the discussion that I was wondering if we could have would be if the child is small enough to sit on your lap, the baby, you want to go downtown or wherever, then you're not taking up a seat, so it isn't costing us any more money, but it does give a little flexibility to babes in a.
Mm-hmm.
I'd support that, except I don't know if it's legal. I don't know if children are allowed to sit in the parent's lap any longer if they have to have the car seat, you know, if they're little, I don't know.
Jeff, you want to jump in with the legal end of that? Is it? Can
I
we sit
don't
up-
know that restraints
There are
apply
no-
to transit buses. I don't believe they do.
There isn't. I mean, they've been trying for years. There have been groups that have been trying to get that in school buses, and that hasn't passed. When you're taking public transit like that, there are no, as far as I know, there is no law that says that they need to be in a child seat or have their own seat because there are no restraints in the buses anyway.
Similar to the airlines, basically.
Exactly.
Yeah, I would support the child on the lap thing. We shouldn't be more restrictive than airlines, and airlines allow a child on.
Yeah.
I'd say we'd have to. I wonder if we can look at the wording, how they word that.
I'm not
Is it
sure
the child on-
how we go about accomplishing that, but
Eric, can you help us out here real quick on the legal end of that?
I'm not aware of any, excuse me, legal restrictions on restraints or anything on buses like this.
How might we go about revising the motion then because right now the motion is to,
I guess I would suggest vote it down and let the Transit Advisory Committee come back
Bring
with
back
a
with
better
the
worded
recommended language.
Lap babies.
motion.
okay.
That's easier.
Yeah, that's a good one.
So you're withdrawing your motion and second, sir? Ma'am?
Sure, why not? Vote. You don't have to vote no then. We'll withdraw.
I think that's a good idea.
Bring
Okay,
back to the
and
next
bring
meeting.
back to the next meeting. Well, thank you.
And they'll get our concerns right. So.
Yes. Right? Okay. The next item, if you don't mind, removing prepayment from the policy because it conflicts with route match. And that's pretty straightforward. Staff recommends striking except for the return portion of a round trip approved and scheduled by the dispatcher from the language above. And I so move.
okay.
We have a motion, we have a second. Any discussion? All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
Okay, the next one, adding smallest coin of a quarter as fair payment, and in this one, staff is recommending inserting this sentence, the smallest coin accepted is a quarter, and I so move.
Second.
We have a motion, we have a second. Any further discussion?
Is this common?
Like 2 fistfuls of pennies, and the driver can't touch the fares, so they come up short periodically, and
So people do pay with pennies, and it gets
Yes,
confusing.
yes.
it is.
Oh, okay.
And
I
as you
didn't
said, the
know.
driver is not allowed to touch and call them.
When I first breezed over that, I was kind of like, well, what the heck? And then I went back and holds out two hands with presumably 500 pennies. That was my favorite sentence in the whole package.
Okay.
We have a motion, we have a second. Any further discussion? All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
Okay, so number 6 on this list is adding Minnesota statute 624.714 to weapon language, and that would be to insert the sentence number 1, no weapons will be allowed on this vehicle except for those permitted under Minnesota statute 624.714. And then number 2, policy 2.446, the discharge of a firearm at or in any portion of a public transit vehicle or facility is a felony offense. So I make that motion.
Second.
We have a motion, we have a second. Any discussion? Go ahead, Dean.
Just to clarify, this is just allowing people who have a conceal and carry permit to conceal and carry on our buses?
Correct.
That's correct.
Okay.
No shooting, though.
Yeah, no, it's a felony to discharge the weapon. Okay.
Any further discussion?
That's a good.
All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign.
Okay,
Motion
and-
carries. Go ahead, Sue.
D, which is a penciled in, and this is to request authorization to advertise notice for bids for a 3-year contract for our transit operation. And
You have that's a motion?
so I would so move.
Second.
Go ahead. We have a motion, we have a second. Go ahead, Sue.
This would be for a 3-year contract with the typical exit clauses with, either party can exit with notice. Final specifications will be brought back to the council before the end of the bid process. Did I miss anything?
Any further discussion? This was an add-on for everybody. There would be 6D. Okay. All in favor of the motion? Say
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Go ahead.
All right. The last item, downtown streetscape maintenance quote. And this is a quote that was received from Northwoods Landscaping for downtown streetscape maintenance. And the bid received was $11,075 from Northwoods Landscaping, and I'll move acceptance of that quote.
Second.
We have a motion, we have a second. Any further
Yeah,
discussion?
Mr. Chair, is that entire cost then assessed?
Correct. That's the note on, yeah, agenda request.
Do we have to hold a public hearing soon to do that, to do the assessment?
Jeff's going to respond to that.
Go ahead, Jeff.
No, typically, we don't do that this time of year. By ordinance, a number of years ago, we created that special services district with the idea that these were going to be the set of services that we provide, and then in the fall, we add up our expenses and go through the assessment hearing.
Thank you.
And Mark, if you want to just jump in, explain what this is.
It's to maintain the streetscape in the downtown area, to hire that contractor to do the work from spring to fall, including starting up the irrigation system and blowing it out in the fall, doing all the day-to-day work of picking up cigarette butts and getting trash into receptacles, not taking receptacles and emptying them, but getting trash into receptacles. Replacing plants that need to be replaced throughout the year, pruning throughout the year. And we sent out something like 31 requests for quotes. We got one. And that's not unusual. We've, in the past, last year, I think we got 2. So wish we could get more, but.
Thanks. We have a motion, we have further
Mr. Chair,
discussion?
I'm just wondering if this cost came in, is this a good price? Is this what you expected?
Yes.
Yeah,
it
this is typical.
Yep.
Yeah, okay.
Any further discussion? All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. End of report.
End of report, Mr. President.
What I would like to do here is take maybe 5 minutes, and that would give the young students to come up here. We'll sign that, and then Tony just call up people.
Yeah, I've told you, if you don't have anything, you can.
Tony. Yep.
What's that?
I came out good, and I went and saw it.
Well, we'll resume with city council, and we'll start out with 8B, and we'll start out with Mary.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Item number 1 is approval of the bills. There were no payments to contractors, so I move approval and payment of the bill.
Second.
We have a motion, we have a second, this will be roll call.
Johnson.
Yep.
Borkenhagen.
Yep.
Hilger.
Yes.
Cope.
Yes.
Pritchett.
Yes.
Sheeler.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Number 2, I move that we have a workshop on Monday, April 13th at 7:30 in the evening with our consultant Sharon Klump on the administrator research. And that is a motion.
Second.
We have a motion, we have a second. Any further discussion?
Mr. Chairman, just quickly, the purpose of the meeting is to select the candidates to be interviewed.
Okay. I was looking for my,
What was the date on that again?
13.
Next Monday, a week
Oh,
from
okay,
today.
all right.
Can I ask a question?
yes, go ahead, Mayor.
David, Cope, is that going to be narrowed down? Is she narrowing it down to a certain amount, or?
As far as I know, and perhaps Patrick can clarify it further, but it will be to recommend 15 candidates to us for determining if all or how many we would like to interview.
Yes, sir. There were 40 applications, and she'll be presenting 15 of them to the city council, is my understanding. We'll get that information on Friday, and we'll have that for you at that time. We'll get out the packet.
Okay, thank you.
Patrick mentioned that he wasn't there the last time we went through this.
Oh, sure.
You should have been.
Me neither.
At least not at that end of things.
Yes. We have a motion, we have a second. All in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Go ahead, Mary.
Item 3, discussion on the capital improvement projects. The motion is to, first of all, get the phone quotes, which has been identified as the number 1 priority. Secondly, to seek other quotes relative to the request for a generator for the police department. And third, to then review what other funds are currently left from other projects that have been done. There is some. And then to proceed based on the results of those actions.
Second.
Can you clarify the motion again?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
The motion is to to move ahead with the phone quotes. We don't
Okay.
have them yet.
Got it.
To ask staff to move ahead, getting the phone quotes, which was identified as our number 1 priority. Secondly, to ask the police chief and whoever else is appropriate in the city to get quotes on a generator. 1 quote was gotten, and it exceeded the amount that we would have in the budget if the phones come in at the possible price. So we are requesting that other quotes be obtained for a generator by the police chief. No commitments at this point. Get quotes. And the third part, we have some funds left over from a couple of park projects, primarily, that were done, capital projects, to review exactly what they are and what that would mean to the increase in our capital. That's it.
Well, we have a motion and a second, which was great, and go ahead, Gabe.
I think part of the motion out of committee too said to have staff start looking into CIP for the bigger HVAC type projects we do need to get done.
You would add that to the motion?
I will add that to the motion.
Thank you.
And there was a second.
And
to that.
yeah.
Okay. Is there any more to that motion? Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you, Mary.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The next item is the request from Community Action for an $8,000 city contribution for the 2015 American Celebration, and specifically they are requesting that for fireworks. The motion, we have a majority and minority motion coming out of committee. Mr. Chair, I will make the majority motion first, and after it's seconded, I would ask if it's appropriate to hold the vote until the minority position can be heard. Is that an appropriate
Yes.
way to proceed?
Thank you, Mary, go ahead.
All right. So the motion out of committee is to deny the request for $8,000 to Community Action for the fireworks and for the cleanup afterwards. And to
We have a, you want to just leave that as a separate motion? Oh, okay, I'm sorry.
this is all part of the
Okay,
majority motion.
thank you.
To deny that and to instead authorize a $4,000 contribution for 2015 with notification to Community Action that the proposal is that in 2016, the budgeted amount would be $3,000, 2017, $2,000, 2018, $1,000, and phased out at that time. So that is the motion from the majority.
We have a motion, we have a second. And with that, I would like to hear
Here, Mr.
Dave.
Yes, the
Thank you,
minority.
Dave.
And I would respectfully disagree. I mean, it's $8,000. It's a lot of money. I think a community is often measured by the events that bring its people together. I know that there was great concern the one year that it was held in Baxter. And looking at this another way, if Baxter is contributing $8,000 and we're contributing $4,000 going down to zero, why would they hold it in Brainerd? And I'm kind of looking at Community Action as just the organization that is running this. You know, I think the city of Brainerd should be spending money to help this celebration, bring these people into Brainerd. To me, it was a jaw-dropping experience the first time I came up to Brainerd and saw everything that was going on after having experienced 4th of July celebrations in St. Paul. I would have come back just for that, but I didn't have to because I lived here. So,
My question, Dave, do you have a dollar amount that you would go?
you know, when you're looking at the fireworks, it would be nice if Nancy were here.
Okay.
I'd like to actually see it itemized, and you know, I don't want to, you know, lowball it and not. You know, I'm assuming that that's what it costs to get the fireworks. I'd like to have more information, but
Okay. Go ahead, Chip.
If I could just contribute as the liaison to Community Action, I would submit that the fireworks is only a part of the celebration. There is a huge amount of other expenditures that we spend quite a bit of time going door to door most of the rest of the year to get the financing from service organizations, from cities, from private parties, if you will, other businesses. So the fireworks isn't what, it's not like the fireworks cost $16,000 and that's it.
Mr. Chair, in speaking to the motion that I made, I would simply point out that while Baxter may contribute $8,000 to the fireworks, the city contributes $1/2 mil every year, which this year is $78,000 to Community Action. And I believe that should cover it. Whatever expenses Community Action determines are appropriate. They do. They pretty much have full control of their budget. And to me, that's the priority, the way they're going about it. That's what they should spend that money on. Additionally, as you know, Mr. Chair, and all of the council know, we're scrambling just to meet basic capital needs in this city. We're scrambling just to meet basic capital needs. And it's, to me, it's kind of like your family. Your basic needs should always be. They have to. So I think this is fair and reasonable, and it doesn't cut it all off right off the bat. It kind of gives them some warning so they can modify what they do if they need to. But I think this is reasonable, and I think it's fair to the tax.
Mayor?
Yeah, if I may, I'd just like to give my two
Please
cents worth,
do.
Mr. President. Number one, as far as the dollar amount, and I know that we do collect a mail for, or part of a mail for community action, but one of the things that I think that a lot of people don't see but should realize is the amount of people that are brought in by all of the activities of community action, the businesses that are affected as far as gas stations. We don't have any hotels, but I mean, we do have grocery stores and you name it. And so the exposure, I mean, we're known statewide and even farther beyond, you know, for our outstanding fireworks as well as the arts in the park and all of the other things that, you know, community action works with and brings into the area. And to me, part of Mary's motion is to decrease that over a period of time. I think that if we're going to vote on anything, it should be on here and now. The council changes, things change over a period of a year or two or three. I don't like putting things out, projecting things out that we're going to reduce it, say 4 and then 3 and then 2 and 1 and then nothing. To me, that is not fair, especially as was brought up about having, you know, Nancy here or having an explanation as to where does all the money go. I know we get a report, usually get a report, but sometimes it's a year or two later that we actually receive it. So I guess my thought is that number one is Baxter contributing $8,000. They don't have a levy or whatever that, you know, we do for like we do, but by the same token, I think that what it brings to the Brainerd area, and I say the Brainerd Lakes area, is you can't put a dollar amount on it. So I don't concur with Mary, and no disrespect, Mary, but I don't like that motion at all.
Sue?
Well, I can see the point of the enjoyment that it brings to the area. I would disagree that it has a lot of commercial benefit to the businesses in Brainerd because of the way that traffic pattern is over to Baxter, where all the fast food restaurants are, where all the hotels are. So I do think Baxter probably does benefit more than Brainerd now, based on just the fact that the bypass went through and traffic moves that way. So it's fine for Baxter to pay $8,000. They also aren't levying to support community action. And if they really wanted to be in it, they could levy to support community action. That would show some skin in the game as far as being part of a community. And I agree that this council making decisions that might have, councils in the future having a different opinion, but a council can review this next year or in 2 years because times change. But right now we do have capital needs in the city that are going unmet, and we do owe the citizens of Brainerd fiscal prudence. So I'm going to support it.
Now it's my turn. Okay, go ahead, Dean.
Yeah, I just like to say I support Mary's motion. I came in not wanting to give them anything this year. I think community action gets a lot of money from the taxpayers of Brainerd. And I love the event, and I always attend it, and I always will, and I want it to be in Brainerd. But I think when they're doing their budget, they can budget part of that $80,000 that the taxpayers of Brainerd are already giving them for part of this celebration. And it was just, it didn't make me feel good to see them coming back to the well for more money, knowing that I work with other nonprofits that don't ever go to the government for money. Like the Brainerd JCs just announced their number this week, and we hold the ice fishing contest. We donated $186,000 to charity this year without asking the government for a dime.
Mm-hmm. Well, on mine, I was hoping that the number was a little bit higher than, the number you had shot in half. I agreed 8,000 was pushing it. I was kind of hoping for a higher number. And I don't agree with the 16, 17, 18 at the moment, because, right now what we have to do is let her absorb and understand we're 3 months away from her having this celebration. And I don't know if she's that well prepared for this big of a chop. I would have went with 6 real easy, at least, coming back a couple of thousand, not the full bite of 4. And I don't want her to leave, or take it somewhere else. So it's been real tough here. Yeah.
Wait, Gary's got the floor.
Yeah. So with that, I guess I'm going to go with roll call.
Can I just
Yeah,
say
go
one more
ahead.
thing? I mean, I think I see this a little bit differently than some of the council members, and I don't disagree with what's been brought up, but to me it seems like it's more of an indictment on community action and whether or not they want to support the 4th of July. And I look at this as supporting Brainerd and supporting our community and supporting people coming in. And yeah, there's a lot of business that's going to go to Baxter, but coming in and seeing Brainerd and seeing what we have, I mean, those businesses, they might not. You might stop in Brainerd and enjoy the 4th of July and might not buy something that time, but you're going to come back to the community if you've enjoyed yourself in a community and spend money there. I think we're being penny wise and nickel foolish to some extent. Cutting it in half in 3 months, I just don't agree with it.
Well, as long as he could say one more thing, can I?
Please.
All right, very quickly. I wonder if the taxpayers who approved the referendum many years ago would have done so if they had been told at that time, this is only part of what you'll be asked. You're going to be nickeled and dimed and dollared and $1,000 to death for this program as time goes on, because in reality, that's what has happened. The taxpayers voted for $1/2 million. And certainly, they had reason to believe that would support the program. And again, there's a benefit or not benefit, depending on your perspective, to history. But I happen to remember that entire selling job. Mayor George Bedard was the mayor, and it was his proposal. And it was sold to the public as, this is the amount of money that we will have for this group, Community Action, to go forward and develop and implement events in our community. I don't think a lot would not have voted for it if they'd known it was plus.
Just the only thing I'll bring up, we're budgeting 85 this year. 2014, we gave them 85. 2013, we gave them 85. 2012, 5, and then 2011, 5. So they've always had a little bit and stuff like that. I'm just going to ask for a roll call then. We'll just go with it.
If I can review the motion, just to
Yeah.
make sure, so it's, the motion is for 4,000 and for reducing scheduled payments from 4 to 3 to 2 to 1 to 0.
Right.
Yep.
Johnson?
Yes.
Workenhagen?
No.
Hildegard?
Yes.
Cope?
Yes.
Pritchett?
No.
Sheeler?
No.
It is tied.
I will go no. Does that surprise anybody?
The motion fails then?
And what I'm looking for on this one would be another motion. And like I said, I'm not looking for the full amount, but, and I don't like the years that are attached. So if somebody can come up with another motion, move this forward, would be nice.
I would like to make a motion that we donate $7,500.
Second.
We have a motion, we have a second. Any further discussion?
Roll call, please.
Are you okay?
Yeah, go
Okay.
ahead.
Johnson?
No.
Workenhagen?
Yes.
Hildegard?
No.
Cope?
No.
Pritchett?
Yes.
Sheeler?
Yes.
I get to do it
Tied
again?
again.
I'll go with yes. I appreciate that.
The motion is approved.
Item,
Shall we move on?
yes.
Okay, item number 5, to move to accept the resignation of Community Service Officer Jake R. Miller, effective May 15th of 2015, and to accept it with regret.
Second.
We have a motion, we have a second. Any further discussion? All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
Item B under 5 is to authorize the hiring of a replacement CSO to maintain the current staff levels, which will bring it to 4. And I so move.
Second.
We have a motion, we have a second. Any discussion? All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
I thought I missed it for a second.
Mr. Chairman, item
Yeah.
6 has been taken care of.
Yes.
And item 7 was on the last page of our agenda. And it is simply a motion to adopt a policy for council authorization to apply for grants in the amount of over $5,000. And that is the motion.
Second.
We have a motion, we have a second. Can that be for any dollar amount, or do you want to specifically say 5?
I would,
If I can,
Go ahead,
motion
Patrick.
was anything over 5. Go
if I
ahead.
can clarify, because I thought your motion just was for authorization, but in the memorandum, it talks about, it doesn't say authorization. Apply for, shall notify council of an intent and identify required match. It doesn't, so I was trying to.
I would absolutely change the motion to that word.
Notification.
Notification,
I
okay.
thought
We
came
talked
out
about
of
that in
committee
committee, so I wanted to make sure. Okay, thank you.
I appreciate that, Pat.
And you'll still leave it at the 5?
Absolutely.
Okay. We have a motion, we have a second. Any further discussion? Chip, go ahead.
I just have a question of the motivation for
Just so the council is kept informed, if I may, Mr. Chair.
Yes.
I spent some time with the Safety and Public Works Committee, and I was always pleased when our engineer would come with a proposal for a grant of any kind, and he always brought it to the committee for their, at least for their review and actually, he always brought it for their approval or disapproval, because he didn't really want to waste time applying for something that at some point the city might then be all upset about. And I thought that was such a good way to handle things, that I thought, why not do it citywide? If someone, I'm not saying that, and we don't say that the city has to authorize it, we're saying the city would be notified, which gives them the opportunity to comment if they choose.
Go ahead, Gabe.
Yeah, I just wanted to point out that that's why we said that we just need to be notified, not authorized. There's no decision-making with the council. They can still apply for grants, but I think this grant we're going to talk about down the agenda a little bit kind of blindsided Mary. She didn't like that. The council should be aware of what's going on when people are applying for grants. So that's pretty much all we wanted was notification.
Additionally, it'll fit right in the forms for the fiscal.
And it doesn't stop them from applying for grants, before a city council meeting. They can apply and then let us know, hey, we started the paperwork on this.
Go ahead, Dave.
I think one of the biggest things too is it handles all the questions we normally have. Is there a matching? What's the time frame? What's it for? That sort of thing.
But we're not discouraging.
No.
And that's, I'm hoping we're not sending that signal to anybody to discourage them from doing it, but we're just notification.
I think we're assuming our responsibility as a council.
Yeah. With that, we have a motion, we have a second. Any further discussion? All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
Item 8, which we amended our policy to add, is, and the motion is to request a closed meeting with our attorney for the purpose of discussion of the overpayment to former contractor. And the request had been made to return the overpayment. It did not happen. And so we are requesting a closed meeting with the attorney.
Nice.
Tonight or next meeting?
No,
The next
give him
meeting.
time to.
Yeah, please,
Not
thanks.
tonight, because
You can't do that.
we didn't give notice to it.
Yes.
You're not required to give notice on that, but it would give time to
I would
follow up.
say at the April 20th, is that
Yeah.
at that meeting?
Second.
We have a motion, we have a second.
Let me clarify, I did say you're not required to give notice, you're not required to give days in advance notice. You could call it at the meeting to go to closed session.
Well, it's good to have notice because our attorney,
Attorney's like,
our current attorney can be prepared.
Mm-hmm.
Any further discussion? All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
Completes our report, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mary. We'll move on to unfinished business. 9A was covered. 9B, Brainerd Lakes Community Foundation Grant Administration, request for council direction. And looks like this is Mark. Come on up, Mark. It says 10 minutes. If you do it in 9, we'll be happier.
Well, I'll take one other minute then to clarify the record. The planning department, ever since I've been here, has always informed and sought council approval for any grants that it applied for, except this last one. So I want to make that clear. Okay? It's not that the planning department is willy-nilly making grant applications. Okay, the reason why we're here is, as you know, as it was alluded to, we've applied for and have received a grant from the Brainerd Lakes Area Community Foundation. That grant was awarded by them to the city of Brainerd. Because of that, we simply can't unilaterally just decide to sublet that grant to another entity. What the council needs to do is they need to, what it's going to boil down to is either the council wants to administer the grant or not. If you do not want to, what you need to do is pass a motion that simply reads or says something to the effect that you're choosing not to accept the grant. That goes back to the Brainerd Lakes Community Foundation.
And the risk of that would be?
Well, then the second part of this, if I don't get to your question in a minute, the second part of this has to do with presuming that if the council wants to do that, you're doing so because you don't want the grant, you just feel there might be a better mechanism to administer the grant than the city council itself. So the second part of that motion is if you're going to return the grant, it should include who it is you want to administer the grant. Tell the Brainerd Lakes Area Community Foundation that as well. So there would be two parts to that motion if you're going to do that. Then the Community Foundation will have to vote on what it wants to do with the grant. It would then need to in turn vote to assign that grant to the other entity that they would then be accepting of the grant. It's been brought up, for example, that the Brainerd HRA would be an entity that might be an appropriate administrator of the grant. The Brainerd Lakes Community Foundation has to vote to award the grant to the foundation. That's procedurally what, in a conversation I had late this afternoon with Brainerd Lakes Community Foundation's parent organization, the Central Minnesota Community Foundation is their parent organization that kind of works with them. They explained to me this is the steps that need to happen. I don't want to make this real complicated. It's just a couple of steps that need to take place if you're not going to administer the grant. If you're not going to administer the grant, I'm presuming you're doing so because, like I said earlier, you feel there might be a better mechanism or better entity, I should say, to do that administration. And you have to decide that. Let's see, let me check my notes here. One of the issues that the council may have concern about by allowing another entity to administer the grant is loss of accountability in terms of the process. If the council chooses to have another entity administer it, there is a way, I think, to build in some accountability into the process for the council. And I will show you that right now.
Go ahead, you've got time for a quick question. How much is the grant worth?
$33,000 a year for 3 years.
Because I don't think a lot of people, I mean, we're talking about this grant and all that stuff, but I think anybody who's still listening wouldn't know the dollar amount, and
Sure.
so thank you.
Yep, clarify, it's $33,000 a year for 3 years to, the purpose of the grant is to hire an administrator to oversee the continued riverfront planning and design process that was started by the work that the steering committee just completed.
Thank you.
Yeah, sorry about that.
No, I'm fine.
So, if the council chooses to have an outside administrator, some suggested conditions that you may want to think about. You could say, for example, to the HRA or to Bladek or to Brainerd Restoration, we support or we want you to administer the grant. However, we have the following conditions if you're going to do it for accountability. Number one, well, you would contract with an independent party to implement the grant goals and objectives. Two, appoint a working committee with whom the grant administrator will work. Three, the HRA will receive the committee recommendations. Now, here's where the city council comes into play in the accountability of the decision process. The HRA or whatever, the Bladek or Brainerd Restoration would submit its recommendations to the city council, who will have final authority on all riverfront planning and design decisions. If the HRA or whatever entity says, no, we don't want to do that, you can say, well, we're going to keep the grant and administer it ourselves. And five, the city council HRA liaison will report back to the city council on progress. However, the HRA board, working committee, and city council meet at least every 6 months for project review and updates. So this what seems to be an easy thing of just trying to find somebody else to administer this grant, there's a couple of things you have to do and some things you can do if you want. Clear as mud?
So you're looking for a motion first?
Yeah, but some questions.
In the end.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. A motion to a motion, the council has to create a motion to determine what direction it wants to go.
Okay. Any discussion? Go ahead.
Okay.
Go ahead, Sue.
Is it a foregone conclusion that no matter what the council decides tonight, the project's going forward and that the train left the station? So that if we were to say we don't care to take the grant at this time because more work needs to be done before we're ready to go to that next level, that they would just give the grant to someone else and it would just keep going. She's shaking her head, yeah. So
no,
that kind of takes it out of our control. If we don't retain the grant, we've lost. If we don't retain oversight, we lose control of what happens to the river and to our duty to protect it.
Go ahead.
Unless I'm confused on this, right now what's only happening is the planning aspect. I mean, we have no commitment to put any monies towards anything or build anything. This is just hiring an administrator to, facilitate the plan, and then they come back with the plan, and we can make any kind of decision we want, whether we're going to implement part of it, all of it, none of it, depending on our financial situation and what they have. That's how I understand it.
That's right.
Can I ask a question?
Go ahead.
Mark, how long is the community foundation going to sit around and wait for us to make a decision?
Well, we have the grant. It's our grant.
Okay, they've given it to us, and
we haven't signed a contract yet.
But okay, because it just seems like last meeting we weren't. It was a big grant, a really nice thing they did, and it didn't seem like we were very appreciative. And now we're sitting here hemming and hawing again, and not just saying, "Wow, thanks, something good will be done here."
And
so I think we should do something good.
Yeah, it's boils down to whether or not the council feels strong enough that it wants to administer this grant or not. And if not, you should really have a good reason why you want somebody else to do it, so that you could tell the foundation that.
Go ahead, Chip.
I would submit that that good reason is because the department that would oversee a lot of this is kind of slim as it is. A person who has a lot on his plate as it is, and there are other entities, HRA, who are positioned well to be able to execute the grant, to monitor things, to keep track of the details, and keep us posted, especially through our liaison. And I would like to dispel fears that this is a locomotive that has left the station, and all that we want to accomplish is to dig up the river. All of this is really is getting some money from an organization who sees the importance of building a community relationship with the river. And money is to primarily be used for a consultant to go out and find the financing, figure out all the details, keep us posted as they go. There are no foregone conclusions. There is not an amphitheater going to be built anytime soon. All we're doing is basically transferring the responsibility of overseeing this director to an organization that is built for this kind of thing.
Mary, go ahead.
Mr. Chair, I'm going to move that the council oversee the grant. And if it gets a second, I will
second it.
And may I speak to that?
And what do you mean by that?
I mean that it will be...
We have a motion, we have a second. Go ahead.
Will be under the jurisdiction of the council.
Okay.
That's what I mean by it.
Okay.
And, Mr. Chairman, the council are elected to make those decisions. Passing those decisions off to another authority is to relinquish a principle that guides our democracy, and that it is the elected people who make the decisions. That the backbone of the system of electing people to represent you is those people will take on that responsibility. That they will not shuffle it off to some other group and then pretend that they really didn't know what was going on. The argument that provides more people to look at it is ludicrous. That is a red herring without any evidence. Accountability requires transparency. And the most transparent, by law, group you can have is an elected group. The council, if it's under the jurisdiction of the council, our meetings are always public. By law, they are public. And as we have had hearings up here in rooms full of people, you can see that when the public knows about something that they're concerned about, they're here. That isn't true of other organizations, no matter what their benefits may be. I don't believe that it's even right to attempt to skirt that responsibility. I think hiring a coordinator, for example, should be a public process. Now, if we shuffle it off to another group, it may not be a public process. There may be someone who's already been determined would be hired. Hiring a coordinator to do something within the city that is so sensitive and needs so much oversight and care. Hiring that coordinator should be a public process, going through the RFPs that we would go through when the city hires anyone. They don't just say, well, you know, John Jones been a good friend of mine for a long time, so we're going to hire him. Or, you know, I like that Betty Smith. I've worked with her. She's good. So we're going to hire her. That's the old spoil system. And this country is supposed to have gotten beyond that. So for transparency, for accountability, for keeping the entire project before the public, for the purposes of determining what is appropriate to go forward. There are some, I think, very good things. What is appropriate to go forward, and what is the time frame? What may be something that we should say never, never in our lifetime? And perhaps there's some things that we'll say they need a lot more study. But for the very simple reason, it needs to stay with the cause. We are the people elected by our constituency to make those tough decisions. It's our job to do that. I don't agree that it'll take any staff time because the hiring of the coordinator is what the grant money is for. And beyond that, the periodic updates to the council should be something that we require of a coordinator. But beyond that, it should not take the staff. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Yeah, thank you. Dave, did you have something to add to that?
You know, I agree that transparency is important, and I agree with a lot of things that Mary has said, but I mean, if you take that argument to its logical end, then we should be doing all of our accounting ourselves and not hiring anybody to do anything. I mean, we still do make the decisions. I mean, when they come here, we still do have the authority. We still do have the oversight. I'm not saying whether I'm going to vote against Mary's her motion or not. But I don't think that's shirking it at all by having, and it'd be pretty easy to make those meetings open also, I would think.
The negatives of this is the signal that we're sending back to, that's what bothers me. I mean, we accepted this
Right.
grant and everything else, and right now I just like to not to be tossing this chunk of money from one set of hands to the other. I mean, I agree with that. So, go ahead, Chip. Or Mayor.
However, it could be perceived by the granting authority that we are being very fiscally responsible and really thinking this through, not just grabbing the money and run. That we have gone through this process of being introspective, considering all of the options, that we're dead serious about what we're doing here. And at some point, I would like to hear from Johnson, his perspective.
On this motion, yeah, I agree, Mary, with everything you said, but I will say that we are elected, and it's part of the democratic process, but we are elected to make decisions, and we're elected to make decisions from a high level of management for the direction of the city. And micromanaging a $30,000 grant, however generous it is, may be below the level a city council should be looking at. We're not micromanaging our CSO officers. We have a police chief to do that. We're not managing the people that, the entry-level positions. We're managing the department heads. So I think that it could be managed elsewhere. HRA is subject to open meeting laws. Every one of their commissioners is appointed and voted on by the city council. It's not a secret group. So I think having an outside organization manage this grant would be better, and I think it could save the city from any cost or any expectation of escalating the grant or continuing it after 3 years. It would be the responsibility of an outside group as opposed to the city.
Go ahead, Sue.
Okay. Well, just a couple things. First of all, the CSOs report to the chief of police, who's a city employee, and so the city retains governance of those people. It's not a third-party administrator that does the police work. It's the city's work. This is important. The grant was given to the city to have a coordinator to move this project along. And I think that it's important for the city to put their skin in the game, whether that is our oversight, whether it is that person reporting to our planning administrator. I think that's appropriate, that that person reports to the planning administrator who is a city employee. That's what I got.
With that, I'm going to ask for roll call.
Could I ask a question?
Yeah, go ahead, man.
If the city were to take control of this grant, would we then hire out someone to do the consulting?
Yeah.
So we would have control over, like you said, an RSVP or whatever, to have someone that would be knowledgeable in this type of process, and then they in turn would do their thing and then report back to the council.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, thank you. I just want to
Do you want me to
clarify that.
summarize the motion again?
Yeah, summarize the motion and start with roll call.
The motion?
Mr. Chair.
Okay. Go ahead.
Could somebody just paint me the picture of the two worlds here? City council and HRA. What are we really looking at for the nuts and bolts? Like, how's it going to go? The meetings, that sort of thing. That's kind of.
I guess Jennifer,
From
you
the,
were
from
begging
the,
to talk.
from the interior side of the HRA, Jennifer should respond to that.
Okay.
Jennifer, you want to come up to the mic? I know
Thank you.
you sat through 3 hours of other stuff, so we owe this to
Point
you.
out
From
that
there.
we didn't even- Maybe.
Hi, I'm Jennifer Bergman. I'm the Executive Director of the Brainerd HRA. First of all, thank you. First thing I did want to say is that congratulations on this grant. This is a grant from the Community Foundation that did go to the city. The HRA did not apply for this grant. In discussions, somebody raised the question to me, would the HRA be interested in administering this grant on behalf of the city? And I said that that's up to the city council. That if the city council so chooses to ask the HRA to administer that grant, and that is the direction of the city council, we of course would be willing to do that on your behalf. That's up to the city council. If that's something you'd like us to do, great. And that, I think Mark put in his board report a motion that the HRA board made, that if that was the direction of the council, that the board would reconvene and consider that motion. If the council is not interested in the HRA administering the grant, that's fine too. It's your grant, and the HRA really doesn't have a position one way or the other. The way that it was portrayed to me was that that first part was kind of the planning process. And now the second phase maybe moves into a redevelopment process. And then maybe the HRA would be an appropriate agency to take on that role. But again, that's the council's decision, not the HRA's decision. We are a component unit of the city. We are subject to open meeting laws like everybody else, or like the city council. We're governed under state statutes. Our board is appointed by you as a council. And if And it doesn't matter. But if the council did want the HRA to administer this grant, we, of course, would follow the direction and the guidance of the city council. This is your grant, not the HRA's grant. So I guess I just wanted to make that clear. Congratulations on the grant, and whatever role you would like to see the HRA play, we'd be happy to do it, whether that's a little, nothing, or all. It's up to you. Thank you.
Thanks, Jennifer. Great clarification. Go ahead, Mark.
I do need to clarify. If the council is not going to administer this and wants to, in a sense, give it back, it's no longer your grant.
Right.
It is not yours.
Yeah, we already knew that.
Brainerd Lakes Area Community Foundation would have to vote to give the grant to the HRA. So you'd be out of it.
With that, you want to summarize the motion, and then we'll go with it. Roll call.
Motion was for the city council to accept and oversee, and council makes the hard decisions. And I assume you wanted to say, and that we gratefully accept the grant.
I guess I'll say that.
Roll call. Johnson?
No.
Morgenhagen?
No.
Hilgard?
Yes.
Cope?
Yes.
Pritchett?
Yes.
Sheeler?
Yes.
It's approved 4-2.
Okay.
You didn't get a chance.
The mayor thought he was going to get a chance.
That's fine.
You were
I'd
prepared.
rather have you people do it.
Okay. We're going to move on to
C.
Arboretum. Yeah, 9C, Northland Arboretum Compost Project. And this request for use of staff and equipment for 20 employees forward. Who's going to be handling this one?
I would. Mrs. Corrigan from Northland Arboretum contacted me about turning the compost again. My recollection was last year the council was specific, very specific, about only doing it for 2014 based upon the request. And so I included that information. And then, if I recall, also our city attorney drafted up, and we did require a waiver, a release of indemnity, and we would do the same thing again if the council so authorizes staff to go over there to do this. In summary, they're asking that Brainerd staff go over to the Arboretum, which is in Baxter, and rotate the compost that is available for free for both city residents.
Go ahead, Mayor.
If I may,
Well, maybe we should get a motion on the floor here, and then we'll just go have a discussion. Somebody want to make a motion on this, one way or the other?
I'll make a motion to approve just a forward discussion.
We have a motion.
Second.
We have a second. Now we'll go with discussion. Go ahead, Mayor.
Well, one of the things, and I know I am the on there as a liaison for the Arboretum at times, and one of the things that I do see and have been commented to me is the amount of people from Brainerd, particularly, that utilize those leaflets. It's really convenient for pretty everybody that lives in the city. Right now, Baxter pays Ingalls a certain amount to have more or less to oversee on certain days having people out there because they do receive quite a bit of garbage sometimes and so forth. But I think that it is in our Brainerd Dome, the old form of Brainerd Dome, and to me it really is. They're not. You're not talking about a lot of dollars or hours as far as equipment or staff. From my understanding, as to what it takes, a couple hours to turn the thing once in a while. So I guess my personal feeling is it's such a beautiful facility. It is so convenient for our citizens in the city, and until they have the help from us, in particular Baxter doesn't always, whatever, I think would be astute for us to provide that service to the Arboretum, and I think our citizens would be appreciative of having that facility, that close. And they need to be able to turn the leaves once in a while. So.
I have one question for Jeff. Do you take your city leaves in the fall when you're sweeping them all up? Can they go there too, or do you take them?
No, they can't go there because it's the street sweepings are considered contaminated.
Okay. Go ahead, Sue.
What is entailed in this turning? Is it like shovels and they turn it over with shovels?
It's a front loader. We just run a front loader out there and have it turn the piles for an hour.
Pretty nominal.
It's pretty nominal.
Go ahead,
Mr. Chairman, I think it's an absolutely wonderful project, and I second everything the mayor said about the benefits of having it and all of that. But I think that at a minimum, we should rotate the service with Baxter. We spent a lot of kind of acrimonious discussion on the 4th of July parade. This is another one where the referendum allocates $1/2 million this year, $78,000 to the Arboretum. And it's getting so it's the allocation plus. And I'm wondering if there's been any effort made to contact Baxter and just, this year they're going to be doing a road project right by there, so maybe they'll have lots of heavy equipment out there, and simply turn it. And maybe every other year, Brainerd do it, Baxter do it, Brainerd do it, Baxter do it. It is in Baxter, although we love it, but it's a suggestion.
Go ahead, Patrick.
If you recall, the reason it came before the city council in August of last year was the fact that they have been working with Baxter on the project. Baxter chose not to be involved, voted against it due to the fact that they had a road construction project and a couple other things. I don't have the exact identical memory to give you the details, but so I'm not sure asking Baxter to take over any responsibility would be worthwhile, being that last year they denied the whole process.
Yeah, we could ask them again.
If I may, Mary,
Yes,
I
please,
happen to
James.
know the mayor and the former mayor that was mayor for a short time, and I will be happy to talk to them about
That
it.
would be wonderful.
That'd be great.
Go ahead,
Maybe
Dean.
we could hold this up for that.
No, not
Okay.
really, because I think they need to be able to start doing it when the leaves.
I just looking
Go
through
ahead,
last
Dave.
year's notes. They paid for the cost of our staff time going
No.
over.
Yeah.
This email said
There was an initial request, and at the meeting, she withdrew everything except for, I mean, the cost. They were talking about.
so. She put this in the packet saying she'd
We
reimburse,
put that in the packet, just so you had last year's information, because I knew some of you weren't here.
but they didn't reimburse us.
There was
Could I explain that just to hear more?
Go ahead.
Mr. Chair- President, one of the things was that they were, if they were open on a Saturday, they had staff time during the week, but to have it open on a Saturday, and that's what Engels does, is they would have somebody there to make certain that what they brought in were just leaves and grass trimmings. And so that was one of the things she was looking for, was to pay a part-time staff person to oversee on a Saturday for people that were bringing leaves and.
So that's not our staff.
That was their staff. They were
Okay.
asking us to pay for that to help on a Saturday. So
Well, then I agree with Mary. It's another group that is going back to the well again. But since Baxter already denied it and it's a real small request, I'll support it.
I just got to ask Jeff, is this a big hindrance? Is it a big cost? I mean, can you help us out? I mean, do you support it, don't support it? staff?
It's not really a big deal for us. It's usually something that we can fit in.
Okay.
I mean, it's something that we can do like on a rainy day,
Yeah.
even, where just run a loader out there, and
Okay.
so as long as there's as long as they have flexibility in terms of when we do it, we can fit it in.
With that, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
With the understanding that the mayor will talk to their mayor and see if we can rotate.
Oh, yeah.
Going forward.
Okay, that's good. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same
Gets
sign.
included.
Yeah,
Motion
Mr.
carries.
Chairman, may I make that motion so that it's
Yes.
in the minutes that our mayor has volunteered and the council accepts that he will discuss with the Baxter mayor the proposition that we rotate who provides that service in the future.
Second.
We have a motion, we have a second. All in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
If I could
Thank
just
you,
say
Mayor.
that I'd like to have it say that work together
You
rather
Yeah.
than rotate.
That would be great, James. That'll
Can
be
you operate a front loader, Mr.
Hey, could I make a comment on that? When I
We're
was
gonna be here to midnight
when,
anyway, so
when
go
I
ahead.
was in the reserves, I built the trails that are in the Arboretum with a front end loader. I was a trained front end loader. I was licensed up to a 10-ton tractor trailer, bulldozer, grader, and a front end loader.
Well,
I
that's
also
if you're
made the
running out of
trails that
staff.
go behind the airport for the ski trails with a front end loader.
Baxter can supply the front loader.
Right.
We'll supply the driver.
I like that. I like that.
Thank you. We're gonna move to 9D.
Great idea.
And I'm gonna let the mayor, being he's really worked up, I'm gonna let him handle 9D.
What are we doing here?
I'm gonna get some of that steam out of you.
Oh, you want to be called for applicants?
Yes.
This is good. And for those that applied for a position down at the Water Light, this is now your opportunity, because now we have Cable Advisory, we have 2 terms that expire in the year 2016 and 17. Charter Commission, we have 2 terms that expire in the year, up to the year 2018. EDA, 1 term to expire on 2020. And the Rental Dwelling Board of Appeals, 1 tenant and 1 general public representative with terms that expire in the year 2016. And so for all of those people out there that really would like to become involved in our city, and this is really an opportune time because it gives you an opportunity to see different aspects of the commissions that are in our city. And if you don't like some things in the charter, this is your opportunity to read it and say, this is what I suggest. So with that, we open this to anybody that would really have an interest in serving our city, so thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. You do a wonderful job every time on that. We're going to move to item number 10. We're going to start new business. A, first reading of a proposed ordinance number 1432, an ordinance amending section 1200.21 of the Brainerd City Code pertaining to on-sale liquor zones and license limitations for the property at the southwest corner of South 6th Street and Maple Street. I would say southwest corner of 371 and Maple. City Administrator Russo recommends dispensing with the actual reading. Go ahead, Mark.
Mr. President, thank you very much. I'll try to be brief with this one. There has been a business operating at that property called the Art Pub. Part of their long-term goal is to be able to provide the opportunity of beer and wine, perhaps, while customers are there painting. They feel it would add to their model of doing business.
What I'll do is you'll just call for a motion. I guess I got.
I move to approve.
Okay, we have a motion. Now we'll go with discussion.
And in order to do that, the property in question is not part of what we call our liquor zones. And our liquor zones would have to be amended to add this legal description into the liquor zone boundary. It would be a standalone district. It's not unprecedented to have standalone districts. There are several scattered around the city. The one thing I want to mention is that the hard part of this is going to be the the tenant's ability to get a liquor license. In fact, there's a very thorough memo from Darla Johnson, the accounts payable, kind of reviewing the issues associated with that business getting a liquor license. What I'd like to suggest is have the first reading tonight. I would not bring this back for second reading until we do some more work with the property tenants to see where they're at with their license, see what can be done. So it might be a few meetings before we bring it back for second reading. But we want to help them along in the process as much as possible.
Thank you. Thank you. And you saved a few minutes on your time frame here. We have a motion. We have a second. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. We'll go to 10B. This will be the first reading of a proposed ordinance number 1433, an ordinance amending sections 1401.17, 2010.13, subdivision 6, and 2011.07, subdivision 3, relating to nuisance in order to correct inconsistencies in the notification method and time periods to abate nuisance. We'll go with a motion.
Second.
We have a motion, we have a second. Go ahead, Mark.
We consider these kind of a housekeeping measure. For example, we don't do a certified mail anymore for notices. We do that all by personal delivery, by personal service or first-class mail. That's in Section 1. In Section 2, there's been a discrepancy all along in the dates by which notice is given. It was cumbersome in terms of the 30 days, so we've changed that so that the two dates in their match of 14 days. And then the final one on the next page is basically correcting again, having a better notice period of time for that section in the city code. So these are housekeeping items.
What was wrong with the notification period before? Just real quick.
Okay.
And I don't mean that.
The 30 days, let me see here. Well, what we did before is we said that they will be notified by mail that the junk light nuisance must be abated not more than 14 days from the date that they get the notice. Tell them they got 14 days to do it, okay? But the second part of that said, the order shall also state that the property owner may, within 30 days, ask for a hearing. We should state that they've either got 14 days to clear it up and ask for that hearing, or ask for the hearing, one or the other. The 14 days to clean it up and then going out 30 days for the hearing doesn't make sense.
Attorney is nodding his head, so
Well, that's good.
Yes.
Could I ask a question, Mr. Chair?
Yes, go ahead.
Mark, the one part that puzzled me was about the notice. It says has been delivered by personal service or first-class mail. I assumed everything was first-class mail. How do you decide which is, when it's personal service?
I don't recall the planning, for example, if the zoning administrator's been involved with any of these, that I've done any personal stuff. It's always been by first-class mail. I don't know if the building department's done any.
Most of the time, it's first-class mail, but sometimes, sometimes we'll actually post a notice on the property.
Okay. Thank you.
We have a motion and we have a second.
Just one thing further to build on Mary's point. Haven't we had some issues in the past where supposedly the respondent didn't get first-class mail? It gets lost in the mail, that kind of thing?
Yeah, I presume so.
We've had people say that.
So, but, and we just say, well, too bad, you didn't get it, we sent it.
And I'm looking at Eric for the legal part of that. If somebody came to you and said he did not receive it by mail, what legal course do we have?
If we've mailed it and we have proof that we mailed it, by a copy of the letter with the date, and somebody who says, I mailed this, or I put this in the mailbox, then we've met our obligations to serve it.
Okay. As long as we didn't put the wrong address down.
Right.
Okay. Any further discussion? We have a motion, we have a second. All in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. That motion
And
carries.
then, Mr. Chair, will the second reading, according to the planner's recommendation, be held perhaps the first meeting in May as versus, or what?
This one we could do at the next meeting,
It says on April 20th.
Thank you.
because I won't be here, so you can.
Thank you.
The next one is the Planning Commission. And that's 11A, and that's the first reading of two proposed ordinances. Number 1434, an ordinance creating section 515-66 of the Brainerd zoning code related to transit food units, TFU, overlay districts, and number 1435, an ordinance amending the official zoning map of the city dated September 2011 as identified in section 515 of the Brainerd City Code to add TFU overlay districts. And
Do we want these together, or do you want them separately?
You're
Well, I motion to approve the first reading of ordinance 1434.
Second.
we have a motion, we have a second. Mark?
Thank you, Mr. President. Something somewhat new for our community, the use of zoning ordinance and zoning map overlay districts. We've kind of got them in terms of flood shoreland areas, the shoreline regulations, the liquor zones is another example of kind of an overlay. But we are amending specifically our zoning ordinance to add a new section, and we're amending our zoning map to add the 8 transient food units as overlay districts in the community. Okay, that's the technical part of this. The not so technical part about this is if the council is comfortable with the recommendations that have come forward in terms of the conditions by which, well, let me back up one quick second. The Planning Commission is expanding the types of units that will be allowed to sell food in the community to trucks, trailers, wagons, carts, seasonal temporary food stands, etc., are allowed on private property. So there's a whole host of them. Before our trial periods, we only allowed the food trucks. The transient food unit hours have been streamlined so that all of them except downtown are from 11 a.m. to 7 p.m. And downtown is, not the typo, 11 p.m. to 2 a.m. There was a change there. And there are 22 types of conditions that are included in order for one of these units to operate in the community. I just want to be sure that we're all comfortable with a few of them because there was a little bit of questioning or why we have them. And these were meant to bring out discussion and not necessarily a recommendation, but they stayed in there. If you go to the ordinance 1434, on page 2, the first one, units cannot locate within 300 feet of a restaurant or bar that serves food. Okay? And I point that one out because this is, in addition to the 8 food unit areas, this would place another limitation on where food trucks could locate, food units could locate within those districts. It whittles down that area to operate further in those 8 districts. Just want to clarify that. Maybe overkill, maybe not. Planning Commission left it in. Number 17, units cannot locate within 300 feet from the property perimeter of any festival, including the county fairgrounds, sports event, and civic event, unless a license is issued to be part of the festival or event. Okay? 300 feet from any festival, sporting event, or civic event. Number 20, I point that out because I did highlight for you the park board minutes on this one. Sales are permitted in a city park when approved by the city of Brainerd. The park board took no action. They wanted to see what the city council was going to do first. And then number 21, I don't see us having a run on food trucks, so I don't know if this one is necessary. 2 food trucks on half acre, 3 on 1/2 acre to 1, and 4 food trucks on 1 acre. Planning Commission left it in, but I wanted to point that out.
Optimistic.
Pardon me?
They're optimistic.
Yes, maybe so. So that is an overview of what is recommended from the Planning Commission and some of the things I wanted to point out in this decision of yours.
We'll look at Dave. Was there any contentious issues on any of these while you were there?
You know, the biggest discussion is some people wanted to liberalize them a lot more, and the decision was kind of made. This is liberalizing them somewhat to see what comes of it. There's concern about with the 300 feet. I mean, we do want some protections for the brick and mortar restaurants in town. Some of the questions were about the park. My question would be the way this is worded, and maybe I forgot but when it talks about permitted by the city of Brainerd, does that mean the park board? Because that was kind of my understanding, is the park board, being the proprietor of the parks, would be the ones that would decide whether it was or not. It just, to me, that seems a little cloudier, just the way it's worded. But
yes, it would be the park board. I would be my thought. Yeah.
But that was the thing, is we don't see food trucks lining up. We wanted to make it easier to allow food units to come in. We didn't want to open the floodgates in case it happens, and we can always alter it as we move forward.
Did you have a full vote on this? Everybody went with it?
I think it was.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay.
Could I raise a question?
Yes.
I thought that the agencies that have looked at it, primarily the Planning Commission, I think they've done a very, very good, and as you have, Mark. And I think a lot of turf has been covered that was questionable or that people had some worries about. But the one that I'm still unclear on, and I would ask if there is any clarification, and that was a letter that we received from a citizen about allowing them in parks or not allowing them in parks. And her question was, why is the city trying to keep their competition out when this park may have food vendors that they've approved or something? And yet the bricks and mortar restaurants have to deal with the competition. I thought that was a fair question. Now, in reading it, the Planning Commission, as I understand it, are saying that there would be allowed in parks upon approval of the city. And I believe I've heard now that that means approval of the park board. And I'm really wondering if there should be overview by the council or if that's sufficient. I could see a tendency for the park board to protect its own turf, so to speak. We have a booth set up and some of the money goes back for our park activities. We don't want to jeopardize that. I understand that. But that doesn't address the fairness issue that the constituent raised. So I don't know if anybody else has any concern on that, or maybe you have an easy answer.
I don't.
Oh, okay.
I'll stay out of that.
Mayor Walling, real quick.
I do have a couple things. Number one, if I remember right, the college, it's got Central Lakes College time frame on that. If I remember, I'd seen a letter from the college that said that they did not want transit food trucks in the college parking lot.
But then they don't have to because it's...
That they have their own food service. So if that's part of this ordinance, then to me that should be deleted. The other thing that I have a concern on is the 300 feet. And if I were to park a vehicle just on the other side of City Hall here, how far is it to North Woods? It's about 300 feet. It's so doggone close that you could say it's 350, 320, but to me that is too close, and I will not sign something that puts it within 300 feet of a brick and mortar building. I'm just telling you up front, I will veto it. So, if that's in there.
Go ahead, Mark.
Oh, no, I'm just listening,
Oh, okay.
looking at the map.
Dave, you were next then.
Yeah, I have the same concern, same opinion as Mary on this issue. If we are going to make brick and mortar stores compete, we should be fair game, and we should have our gummy worm salespeople at the parks compete with the burrito truck down the street. And I think this is a good start. It's a better policy than the one we had before. I think it should be more openness for competition, more open for competition. But this is a good start, and I like it.
But what is the resolution on the park issue? I've raised it, but what, are we just going to leave it, or are we going to change it? What are we going to do?
Well, I guess I'd have to ask.
So go ahead.
Yes, I would say that we make the modifications now before we pass.
And what would be the
That
recommendation?
we approve vendors to the city parks, based on the parameters of 2 food trucks on a 1/2 acre or less, and the size and scope of a park. It could be 1 or it might be none. But it might be an ice cream truck. You just never know. So,
Is that a motion?
yes,
Are we gonna
Well,
keep
are you
it?
gonna amend your
if
motion?
it's
We have a
applicable,
motion
we
on the
have one on
floor.
the table.
So are you going to amend the motion to that?
Well, I would want a clarification on that. I mean, if we're going to do that, I think we need to keep looking at that 300, keep that the same.
If I might suggest is that you have a motion to take it to the second, approve this, go to the second reading. If there's a list of areas where you'd like to make modifications, make a list and forward that on to the city planner.
Okay.
And maybe someone wants to suggest a number that might be acceptable to the mayor that would, or
Well, Mr. Chair, speaking of that, if you've been in downtown Minneapolis in the summer, food trucks are parked almost end to end by restaurants, everything you can think of down there. And all it frankly seems to do is add to the people coming down there. So I don't know that is going to help the bricks and mortar. Early in the discussions a year or two ago, I was entirely sympathetic to that argument. But as I've learned more about it and seen other communities how it works, it really almost benefits them. So I would say I think 300 feet's reasonable.
My question is, there's a permitting process? Do they pay a fee to be in town?
That'll be the next part of this, is that we do have a fee that we use during the trial period. We would bring forth an ordinance to propose a fee, permanent fee.
And what is the fee, roughly? I mean, 135? But
I think it was $500.
Okay. My hiccup is you've got something that's traveling that's not paying any property tax, nothing to the city, that's on wheels and, robbing, from the people that are paying. So, I have a little hiccup that we cater too much to that. It's a great idea and stuff, but you have to understand, some of these places pay $5,000 to $10,000 a year property tax, and somebody pulls right up, doesn't have to pay nothing, and just takes the people away from them.
City of Alexandria is having this very same discussion.
Okay.
Yep, and it's many communities.
Yeah.
That's why I kind of think the 300 feet. I mean, if I'm going in to have a sit-down meal, I'm not going to stop at the food truck. And if I drive by and see it, I mean, it gives me an option. I think there's still that some degree of competition, but I don't think it's quite in your face. Like, I'm going to pull up a Prairie Bay-esque kind of food truck in front of someplace and be waving, caviar and.
Mr. President,
Yes, go ahead, Mark.
I can work with the language. However, I'm a little nervous in terms of hearing the mayor make a statement about he would veto a 300-foot, which I completely understand where you're coming from. I'm a little nervous about trying to come back with something that may or may not work in terms of a distance. I guess I'd have to.
We can override his veto.
Well, I know.
Takes a 5-2, Mary.
But my question here is, do you want just to retract on this and bring it back before we vote on it?
Well, tonight is the first reading.
Yes.
And I think we can have, my suggestion, we can have first reading. We've raised concerns. We can take a look at those concerns and try to bring back the language that.
But the next one's a public hearing.
Yep.
Okay.
And it would be the public hearing as well.
And I was just wondering if you want the public hearing at the same time we're making the revisions, and we really got a crowd out there that's hearing the changes and reacting to them. But I don't know. I mean, do you want?
Well, that's the way our process is.
Okay. Okay, we got it. Well, we have a motion, we have a second. Any further discussion? All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. The motion carries. We'll go to 11B.
Oh, wait, we have to do, I move for the first reading of ordinance 1435.
Second.
We have a motion, we have a second. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. That motion carries. Thanks, Dave, for catching
No
that.
problem. I also move for the first reading of proposed ordinance number 1436, amending the Brainerd zoning codes 515-616, 515-626, 515-636, 515-656, and 515-755 regarding non-enclosed areas for dining and or serving alcohol.
We have a motion. We have a second. Any further discussion? Go ahead, Mark.
The reason why there are so many numbers there is there are several zoning districts that are affected by the change, the B2, B3, B4, B5, B6, and I1. This is adding something that we don't have today. That's the ability of a bar or restaurant to have something called a non-enclosed premises on their property to serve alcohol outside of the main four walls of the principal building. The language that is before you is the same in every district except when it comes to music. There was a little bit of a difference between what the Planning Commission is recommending for B2, which is a neighborhood business district, and the other district. It has to do with music and amplified music. I want to point that out. And there are the number of conditions that, well, first of all, the property owner would need to apply for a conditional use permit to have a non-enclosed premises on their property, and they would have to abide by the conditions that are listed here in the zoning ordinance for setting up that non-enclosed area, as well as the Planning Commission and the City Council could enact other conditions that they think appropriate for a particular location to operate. Let's see here. That's basically it, Mr. President.
And we're happy to hear that.
Okay. If there's any questions, I'll answer them.
I do have a question. This is only on their own private property, is that correct?
That's correct.
And the reason I asked that is I did read these, and I thought, who could use it? I'm looking downtown, sidewalks aren't their private property.
Correct.
They can't have stuff out in the sidewalk.
Correct.
I mean,
Correct.
who would use it?
Well, technically, if, for example, the Blue Ox ever reopened or over under another name, they've got an area alongside their building that is their property that is not city-owned.
Oh, isn't it a parking lot?
They also have a median or a grass
Okay.
dirt area that
All right.
could be converted.
Okay.
Yesterday's Gone has an area that they are interested in doing. This place on Mill Avenue, that's the old Choppers, everybody thinks the old Choppers, Sunshine, Moonshine. They could possibly do it. So there are a few.
But it wouldn't be the downtown, I don't see how they could do it. Except the blue logs.
I don't know if Log Cabin has room. Yeah, some probably don't have room.
Well, we have a motion, we have a second. Any further discussion? All in favor of the motion, say aye. Opposed, same sign. That motion carries. Thank you, Mark. End of your report. Item number 12 will be public forum. This is time allocated for citizens to bring matters not on the agenda to the attention of the council. Time limits will be imposed tonight. And I just would ask that you just come one at a time, huh?
That'd be good.
We have nobody in the audience, so we'll go to item number 13, staff reports. Go ahead. Anybody with staff?
Well, I just want to take about 2 more minutes so I can miss the entire game. So,
Okay.
Other than that, no, I have no comment.
There's a game.
Yeah.
Item number
Chip
14,
Lomilla, please.
council president, mayor, and council other committee reports. Mayor, you got
I've got
something to
just
add?
one item.
Yep.
Beside my written report, our Congressman Nolan was going to be here on Wednesday at 1 o'clock. The time has been changed now to 3 o'clock. And unless further change of time in that, but he'll be meeting out at the airport, and it pertains to the airport and a lot of issues pertaining to that. But for those who got the notice of him, I'm sure everybody just got a call. But anyway, that's all I wanted to bring up. Thank you.
On my report, make it real quick and sweet. Basically, it's the dam report again, and we had a closed session last week in mediation. That's still going to go on. I think we're going to have one more closed session. And then I would like to start pretty soon with our finance overview committee, and I'll bring that up at the next meeting. Once we get this mediation done, then we can go ahead with our finance committee. And then the other meeting we got is with the sales tax with the city of Baxter, and Patrick and I, and we're still working on that, and we should have something back hopefully by the next meeting. So if not, we'll bring you up to date on that. And of that report, so the next motion